Chapter 804. The coordinates of Gu Fei naturally stopped moving when he fought with the team. Now that the location was clear, Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger immediately contacted all the players to gather here. At the same time, they were also concerned about the progress of the battle. The mages are all dead, and 4/5 of the archers are dead. The two received the painful report and were stunned. They could understand 1,000 miles drunk suppressing over 200 players. However, it was rather abnormal for all of them to die. This was especially true for mages, who had high attack but low HP and poor mobility. They had always been the focus of the team's protection, and the degree of protection they received was second only to clerics. How could there be a single mage that died so cleanly? This simply didn't make sense. How did they fight? The two guild leaders threw the same question to their guild members. Therefore, the guild members explained in detail. They admitted their mistakes and gave full praise to the mages for sacrificing themselves to kill the enemy. Although they didn't kill successfully, they only killed themselves, and Qianli Drunk was eating an apple peacefully at the side. After listening to the report, the two guild leaders' faces turned pale. Who's in command? The two of them seemed to be quite calm. There was no one commanding. It was everyone's brainpower. The answer was brainpower, brainpower, brainpower. The two guild leaders kept repeating this phrase. Their blood rushed to their head, and their faces turned from pale to rusty red. Brainpower, brainpower. This made the two unable to even pick a target to criticize. They couldn't possibly scold 200 people at the same time, right? The law didn't blame the masses. The two looked at each other, and could see that the other was holding back a mouthful of blood. Motherfucker. Black Index Finger spoke first. A bunch of trash. Unchung Mutsu answered. That's right. Black Index Finger said. They actually ran circles around Qianli Drunk. I'm so mad. Unchung Mutsu said. In this situation, they shouldn't be standing in a square formation. They should be standing in a circular formation. This way, no matter how Qianli Drunk spins, as long as he keeps turning horizontally, we can easily keep up. Black Index Finger said. That's right. That's why I say this bunch of trash. Unchung Mutsu cursed. I'm going to die of anger too. The Black Index Finger said. It's too late to send a message now. The long-range attackers are all dead. Unchung Mutsu said. Next up, Qianli's Drunk will play with them from a distance. Black Index Finger said. Why don't we ask them to disperse? Said Unchung Mutsu. Oh, according to the situation of the previous teams being killed, Qianli Drunk's priority target is always the target of his wanted quest. From this, it can be seen that he is still prioritizing clearing his PK points. So if we let them all disperse now, Qianli Drunk's priority will definitely be the target of his quest. This way we can reduce our losses by quite a bit. Unchung Mutsu analyzed. I think that if the melee classes don't move, and the priests heal them, we should be able to drag this out. Qianli Drunk's damage is only high in melee. As for long-range attackers, they're still lacking compared to his melee attacks. Black Index Finger said. What if he forces us into melee combat? Unchung Mutsu said. I think he's still worried about 200 people. Otherwise, he would have rushed up into melee combat a long time ago. Archers and mechanics won't be able to stop him in melee combat. Black Index Finger analyzed. You're right. Unchung Mutsu thought about it and agreed with Black Index Finger. Let's just let them fight like this. It should be enough to last until we arrive. Black Index Finger said. After Unchung Mutsu nodded, the two guild masters gave their orders and remotely made the battle guidelines. The answer they received made them want to vomit blood. The players at the front line told them that Qianli Drunk wasn't afraid of melee combat at all. He was currently chasing after them. Surround him. Can't we surround him with so many people? The two guild masters questioned. We can't surround him. We really can't surround him. The players who answered the two were in pain, but they were very sure. What's going on? Unchung Mutsu was at a loss. Why can't we surround him? Black Index Finger was also in disbelief. His movements are too fast. We can't catch him. There's also electric wall to create obstacles, blink to suddenly change positions, double flame flash to kill people, and a skill to push people. Oh right, he just jumped on top of people's heads. How can we surround him? The players at the front line described Gu Fei's methods in detail. How many died? The two guild masters asked expressionlessly. I don't know. They didn't know, which meant that they were too busy to count. The two guild masters panicked. Would this team of more than 200 people be completely annihilated? It wouldn't be completely annihilated. Gu Fei did use many skills to ensure that he wouldn't be surrounded when fighting in the crowd. However, in this situation, he couldn't calculate how much mana he used. He often ran out of mana and had no choice but to leave the battlefield. Then he would replenish his energy with fruits and chase after them, repeating the process. In this way, it would be a good result if he could kill 20 to 30 people every time he charged. The opposing players couldn't surround him, they couldn't beat him, and they couldn't chase after him either. At this time, they had already turned around and ran in the direction of the main city. The thieves and archers with speed had already run away. At this time, no one blamed them. In this situation, anyone who could run would run away. Gradually, they saw reinforcements coming from all directions. The players were overjoyed. This hellish situation had finally come to an end. Those who had not died until now were glad that they had been lucky enough to survive. Of course, Gu Fei also saw the players coming from all directions. He had already expected this. At this time, he didn't hesitate at all. After killing one more time, he left with big strides. A bunch of short-legged players looked at their own side that had been destroyed by Gu Fei. They watched as Gu Fei left like a shooting star. They couldn't do anything. They only knew the sorrow in their hearts. Where's Qianli's drunk? Where's Qianli's drunk? Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger, who had rushed all the way from the main street of the city, finally met up with this group of players. With a glance, they had a rough idea of how many people they had lost. More than 100 people was definitely not a problem. The two quick-witted guild leaders also calculated the losses on this side from another angle. They asked the players at the wanted quest office what was the PK value of Qianli's drunk at this time. The answer was 387. The two of them were silent and did a subtraction. They already knew that in this group, Gu Fei had killed more than 100 people. It should be more like 200. 387 PK value. If he dies, he'll be close to level 0. Unchung Mutsu seemed to be talking to himself. The problem is, how can we kill him? Black Index Finger said. When the two of them rushed over, Gu Fei had already fled far away. They didn't even see his shadow. The wanted quest can show his coordinates every 5 minutes, but this is useless. If he wants, he can fly to Moonlit Night City at any time. We can't chase him there. Unchung Mutsu said. Even if we chase him, he suddenly flies back. What do we do? Black Index Finger said. But with so many PK value, we have to wash it, right? Unchung Mutsu said. That's right. He's washing it. He's using our people to wash it. Black Index Finger's expression was pained. At this time, all the players had gathered here, but Qianli's drunk was nowhere to be seen. The players who received the wanted quest could see the coordinates change every 5 minutes. But should they chase him or not? Everyone was at a loss. If they were in the main city, Gu Fei could escape by climbing over walls and buildings. Not to mention, the wilderness was huge. They couldn't surround or block it. They had speed and teleport scrolls. Unchung Mutsu was startled. It was a bit rushed before. Maybe we should make good use of this. You're saying to use players with PK value as bait? Unchung Mutsu nodded. We need a convenient place to ambush and wait for him to come. What if he doesn't come? Other than this, do we have any other way? You know his coordinates, but can you chase him? I think we can gather a team of archers. Even if we can't kill him, we can keep harassing him. We don't have to worry about him counterattacking. As long as we keep a good distance, he won't be able to catch up. If we keep harassing him, there will be times when he isn't paying attention. Black Index Finger also had an idea. Then he can leave Cloud City. Unchung Mutsu said. Damn. Black Index Finger forgot about his hand again. Looks like we can only follow your idea. Let's think of a place. Unchung Mutsu thought. It's finally over. The team leader of Drifting's group let out a sigh of relief. The two guilds had a total of 2,100 players. Drifting sent all of their names to Gu Fei. At the same time, he asked Left Hand Right Love and Right Hand Right Handsome to copy them down. I wonder how this guy is doing. Drifting thought, and went to another place in the information room. The information room had all kinds of information about the main city, including the PK value ranking of the players in the main city. Of course, this was only the information. For quests, they still had to go to the wanted mission office. 387. Drifting saw the first place and coughed up blood. He sent a message to Gu Fei. Where's your wanted mission? Washing PK? Yeah. It's now 387 points? Drifting asked. How do you know? I can find out everything. Oh, those wanted targets? It's impossible for them to be there alone. They're all in groups. I can't do anything about it. Gu Fei explained. 387 points? What are you going to do? I can't get the people from Black Alliance and Muyun. The more I get, the more PK value I get. Find someone else for me, Gu Fei said. What do you mean by someone else? Drifting's face turned green. Someone else means all the players in Cloud City except for these two guilds, Gu Fei said seriously. I have 19 PK value. You can get me. Drifting was about to reply, but when he saw the PK value list in front of him, he was surprised. Then he laughed and quickly agreed. If you don't need to be a guild, then this PK value information will do, right? Drifting smiled at Left Hand Right Love and Right Hand Right Handsome. The two were silent for a long time. Left Hand Right Love was confused. Are our wanderers really born to serve the guard? Chapter 805. The PK information in the information room was different from that in the bounty office. There weren't any quests here, so of course, there wouldn't be a quest number displayed. Instead, it was a list of the player's name, followed by the player's PK value. It was almost as if it was specially made for Gu Fei's bounty license. This made Right Love's left hand very jealous. They didn't even realize what use they had for this little bit of value in their camp. Instead, it was all for Thousand Li Drunk. I'll let it go this time. If he comes looking for trouble in the future, I'll have to charge him. This kid is rich. More importantly, he's rich, but he doesn't care about money. If there are quests in this area in the future, I think he won't refuse no matter how much we charge him. Drifting was very calm. He had already thought of the value of their faction. Information in itself was a very valuable thing. As long as he could find the person who needed it, it would be enough. Qianli Drunk was just one of them. Perhaps there were more players who needed information that could be easily found in the resource room. Drifting described his future money, while sending the names of the players to Gu Fei. He was also used to sending 20 at a time. Not long after Gu Fei received it, he immediately replied, "That's amazing. 5 quests in a row. This group of names is amazing." Drifting was very calm. I'm guessing all 20 will have quests. Do you want to bet? Gu Fei immediately saw through him. How did you get them? Nothing much. The resource room also has PK information. You guys with PK value will all be listed there, Drifting said. Why didn't you use it just now? Gu Fei asked. There are only players' names on the leaderboard. It doesn't list the players' guilds, Drifting said. Oh, then you have to check the names on the leaderboard with Muyun and Black Alliance. Don't let me get people from these two guilds again, Gu Fei said. He was going to get people from these two guilds, and now he was going to get rid of them. Drifting had the urge to charge this guy, but he resisted the urge. After talking to the two guys, they were both stunned. This is too troublesome, right? No, don't check the list we copied. When I read a name, go to the data and check the player's background. It'll be faster, Drifting said. Oh, that's better. The two let out a long breath. The 3 of them started working again. They checked the 20 names that had been sent out. As expected, there were players from these 2 guilds in the list. They added information to Gu Fei. Gu Fei nodded and praised Drifting for his meticulous work. Drifting ignored him. He was thinking that when this was over, next time this guy needed to find something, he would give him some money to make up for the mental and physical loss. After Gu Fei accepted his new quest, he temporarily ignored the 2 unfinished quests he had received from the 2 guilds. He immediately rushed towards his new target. Like before, he chose a target outside the city instead of inside the city. This time, it was just a normal player. They didn't have any grudges against each other. Sometimes, it was just a team. Gu Fei almost shouted the wrong line. Leave the guild and don't kill. He had already shouted 2 words, but he realized that it was wrong. He immediately changed his words and shouted, Wanted quest. If you have nothing to do, go. If you had nothing to do, go. After the city war, Qianli became famous for killing 1,000 people. Once he was drunk, he would just admit that he was unlucky. What was the point of fighting? The players in Cloud City had already accepted their fate. Drifting continued to send in new IDs. These were all accurate, so he didn't have to try them one by one. Gu Fei killed as he led the quests. He didn't meet any resistance. As expected, none of them were from the 2 guilds. He was happy. The quest list was densely packed with completed quests. If this continued, it wouldn't be too difficult to clear nearly 400 PK points. At this moment, Unchung Mutsu and the others realized that they had been made a fool of again. He and Black Index Finger carefully chose a perfect ambush spot. Then they randomly chose a few players with PK points to stay in the center of the encirclement. The others scattered and waited for orders. Then, the wanted quest tracked the coordinates of Qianli's drunk. However, they couldn't see where he was heading. Not long after, other bad news came. In the Conspirator Guild, someone was finally given a wanted quest by Qianli's drunk. The only difference was that he only completed the quest and didn't kill anyone else. This was the first time that Qianli's drunk attacked players from guilds other than Muyun and Black Alliance. The saying that the bird that sticks out will be shot doesn't seem to be true anymore. However, he only completed the quest and didn't kill anyone else. This difference seemed to be very subtle. According to the players who were given a wanted quest, Qianli only shouted about wanted quest. He didn't threaten them to leave the guild or anything like that. The hearts of these guild players were in turmoil. Some people thought that Qianli's drunk was letting them go, so they treated them differently. As one guild after another was placed on the wanted list, everyone felt that Thousand Miles drunk already knew which guilds were involved. If they continued to resist stubbornly with his leniency, it was likely that Thousand Miles drunk wouldn't give them any face. Soon, 3 guilds withdrew from the competition without even saying a word. Although the 3 guild leaders couldn't contact Qianli, they thought about the very overpowered players in the prison. So they paid a fee to visit the prison and found Sword Demon. They apologized to him and said that they had completely withdrawn. There was an uproar in the prison. Sword Demon wasn't alone now. His prison was full of players from Black Alliance and Muyun. With so many people, someone finally recognized the silent guy sitting in the corner. It was the guild leader of their rival guild. Taunts, and all sorts of other things could be heard. Everyone vented their anger and fear of 1,000 Miles drunk on the Sword Spectre. Fortunately, the prison was like a safe zone, and no one could fight. Otherwise, it was hard to say what would have happened. But what kind of person was Sword Demon? He was the most famous top expert in the past. Praise, worship, jealousy, ridicule, and sarcasm. What hadn't he experienced? He couldn't even be bothered to talk back to these guys. He calmly ignored them. It wasn't until a visitor came to the prison and asked about the location of the overpowered players that Sword Demon reacted. He stood up from the corner and walked out. He completely ignored the players around him. Sword Demon had no idea what was happening outside. These 3 guild leaders came to apologize and express their intention to withdraw. He was confused. Before he could say anything, his cellmates, the cellmates opposite him, and the cellmates next to him all started scolding him. These players were all from the 2 big guilds. The 3 guild leaders didn't move at all. When they took this step, they had already thought through everything clearly. Muyun and Black Alliance were very strong, but this strength was probably a thing of the past. They had offended enemies that they shouldn't have offended, and they had no way out. The leaders of these 2 guilds kept telling them that if they killed Qianli, his threat as the #1 assassin would obviously disappear. Now it seemed that these 2 were right about not being a threat. However, they were the ones who were no longer a threat because it seemed like their guilds were going to be destroyed by Qianli when he got drunk. after expressing their apologies and remorse to Sword Ghost once again, and Sword Ghost accepted their apologies in a daze, the 3 guild leaders left happily. As for the noisy others, they were also treated as air. These players scolded, but when they saw the 3 guild leaders personally running to the prison to apologize to this overpowered guild leader who was still in prison, they guessed that something big must have happened outside. They were already feeling guilty. Scolding was just to cover up their guilt. Now that the 3 of them had left, everyone had complicated feelings when they faced Sword Demon again. Those who had scolded Sword Demon too fiercely before now looked uneasy. Everyone looked at each other with worry in their eyes. What about Sword Demon? He just quietly returned to his corner. This time, when he walked by, the players actually began to make way for him, intentionally or unintentionally. What on earth happened? The Sword Ghost, who had returned to the corner, was also puzzled. Gu Fei's PK cleansing activities continued smoothly, and the damage he unintentionally caused to the other alliance continued. After the 3 guilds, 2 more guilds also chose to leave. They didn't go to the prison to find Sword Demon, but they sent an extremely sincere letter to Qianli when he got drunk. Gu Fei was busy clearing PKs, so he didn't have the time to return to the city to read the letter. Moreover, he didn't dare to reply, so he didn't know that the other side's alliance was already in a state of panic due to his random clearing of PKs. Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger only knew that Qianli had expanded the scope of the attack. 5 guilds had already left, and they were still in the dark. The 5 guild leaders didn't send any news, and the members who participated in the battle also left silently. The 5 guilds were all small guilds, so no one paid attention to them. But with Qianli's extensive wanted missions, the 2 guild leaders finally decided to use all the people with PK value from each guild as bait. They had to lure Qianli into this elaborate trap. There was no guild information on the list provided by Drifting. Even if they added information on the guilds, Gu Fei only knew about Black Alliance and Muyin family. He continued to follow the quest list, accepting quests according to distance. Along the way, there was finally a certain guild's bait that Gu Fei set as the next target to complete. Completely unaware of the situation, Gu Fei quickly rushed towards this target. This area was already filled with informants from Black Index Finger and Unchung Mutsu. Along the way, there were many players who pretended to be ordinary players. Qianli's drunk is coming. The 2 guild leaders received reports from several people. The coordinates in the wanted mission refreshed, and it showed that Qianli's drunk was approaching them. Chapter 806. Attention all squads. Attention all squads. The target is approaching. The target is approaching. When Unchung Mutsu sent this message to the team leaders, he felt that his hands were trembling. He was too nervous. Black Index Finger was beside him. He did not make a sound. His hands looked very steady. However, when Unchung Mutsu looked down, he realized that the guy's legs were trembling. He's not even as good as me, Unchung Mutsu said in disdain. He felt that the trembling of his hands could be interpreted as nervousness. Even his legs were trembling. This must be fear, right? Victory or defeat depends on this one move. Unchung Mutsu clenched his teeth. He did not know how he could kill Qianli if he missed this opportunity. This opponent was too difficult to deal with. The concept of strength in numbers was completely overturned in front of him. At this moment, all they could see was Qianli's agility and mobility. As for their numbers, it was as if they did not exist. Keep updating his position, Unchung Mutsu thought as he sent a message to the spy who discovered Qianli's drunken state. He stopped. The spy suddenly said. He stopped. Yes. Unchung Mutsu was anxious. He was very anxious. The spy had spread out far away. That was why he discovered Qianli's drunken state earlier. He had not entered their attack range yet. But why did he suddenly stop? He knows. Unchung Mutsu was confused. 2 words immediately popped up in his mind. Traitor. Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger were guarding against this. So this time they did not go all out. Each of them chose their old subordinates and brothers that they could completely rely on. The other participating guilds also carefully selected their people according to the two's request. The ambush this time was really about quality and not quantity. The first requirement for participating players was that they must be reliable. They did not expect that even with so many precautions, the news would still be leaked. The level of the bitch the other party had bribed was quite high. It's actually a guy that we thought was trustworthy. The Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger had discussed it in private. They were certain that if there was a mole, he was definitely bribed and not planted long ago. The reason was very simple. If there had been a traitor in the first place, how could their encirclement plan have succeeded? The only possibility was that someone in the guild had been bribed by the other party. Looking at the group of brothers behind him, all of whom he trusted 100%, Unchung Mutsu could not believe that one of them had been bribed by his opponent. He felt extremely pained. However, on second thought, he realized that they might not be from his family. Perhaps they were under the Black Index Finger. Black Index Finger and the Unchung Mutsu were thinking more and more in sync with each other. As soon as the spy said that Qianli was drunk and stopped walking, he immediately turned back to check his team. In the end, he couldn't believe that there was a traitor among his brothers, so he also thought that there was something wrong with the Unchung Mutsu's men. As a result, the two of them stared at each other. Sigh. The two of them sighed. What do we do now? Unchung Mutsu said. We can't just wait like this. Let's move the team, expand the area, and then shrink back. What do you think? Black Index Finger said. Let's wait a little longer. Since they didn't bring a lot of people this time, it wasn't possible to form a huge encirclement and then trap the other party, especially against drunk Qianli, who was a top-notch runner. He moved. He's continuing to walk. The spy finally came back with news. The two of them let out a sigh of relief. You're overthinking. Unchung Mutsu revealed a smile. That's right. Maybe he just received a message or something, Black Index Finger said. Everyone, continue to get ready. Focus. Unchung Mutsu ordered. Everyone was on standby. The few players who were used as bait continued to scatter around the area, as if there was no one else around. No matter which one of them drunk Qianli attacked, the encirclement could instantly launch an attack. The mages would bombard the area. The archers would harass and restrict him. The other classes would block the way out, and the lurkers would set up traps. Everything had been carefully planned out. Unchung Mutsu went through all the details in his heart again, and felt that there were no flaws. Drunk Qianli's coordinates were reported by the wanted players. As for the specific movements, there were spies along the way to monitor them. In order to prevent any flaws from being seen through, all the spies arranged this time were scouting in fixed locations. Once they left their line of sight, there would naturally be another spy following them. From the beginning to the end, they didn't need to follow him at all. They only needed to observe from afar. He's getting closer, he's getting closer. This was the last spy. From here, they could already see the trap that drunk Qianli would eventually walk into. Everyone forgot to breathe. He's coming in. Everyone, pay attention. Unchung Mutsu shouted. Look at his direction. His attack might be. Fuck, why did he stop again? The spy shouted. Everyone, don't panic. Unchung Mutsu was very calm this time. He only stopped for a moment. Perhaps it was because he suddenly needed a long and serious reply to the messages that he had been sending earlier. Hence he stopped again. He didn't want to create a tense atmosphere for himself. It's already the countdown. Everyone, don't let your guard down. Black Index Finger encouraged everyone. Everyone knew that this opportunity was hard to come by. There was no need for him to talk nonsense. Everyone was fully focused. Their minds were filled with the black, terrifying figure. He's looking around. The more the spy looked, the more he felt that something was wrong. After Gu Fei stopped this time, he looked left and right, but he didn't look into the trap area. He seemed to be looking for something. Looking around? He took a detour. At this moment, the spy shouted again. Fuck, there really is a traitor. Black Index Finger jumped up. Let's see where he's going first. Unchung Mutsu restrained his impulse this time. He went left. I can't see him anymore. The spy replied. Left. Unchung Mutsu's face turned green. He turned around and saw Qianli at the bottom of the hill. He was drunk and was looking up. When he saw the bunch of people lying on the ground, he smiled and waved at them. Traitor, traitor. Unchung Mutsu only muttered these 2 words. Fuck, what else can we say? Brothers, let's fight. Black Index Finger was beside Unchung Mutsu. He turned around and saw Gu Fei. He knew that the trap had failed this time, so he jumped up and challenged. All the players were prepared. The first wave of attack wasn't careless at all. However, this was completely different from what they had prepared. 4/5 of the players who were ambushing couldn't see Gu Fei at all, let alone attack. As for blocking the way out, that had become a legend. The current attack seemed more like self-defense. Why are you still in a daze? Do you want to die? Black Index Finger saw that Unchung Mutsu was still in a daze, so he gave him a slap on the head. Not to the extent of dying. Unchung Mutsu smiled bitterly. They didn't have many people, but they still had around 1,000 people. He believed that as long as he commanded them well, Qianli couldn't do anything to them even when he was drunk. Killing 1,000 people was just a legend. However, Qianli couldn't do anything to them when he was drunk, and they couldn't do anything to Qianli when he was drunk. To them, this was the same as losing. Gu Fei, who was at the bottom of the hill, easily dodged the wave of attacks. The other players who were lying in ambush all rushed in this direction. Black Index Finger didn't plan to give up so easily. He commanded 6 squads to take a detour from the left and right. He still wanted to cut off Qianli's escape route. The archers and sorcerers beside him fired arrows wildly. Fighting with Qianli from afar was at least safer than fighting in close combat. Under Black Index Finger's command, Qianli tried to charge forward several times, but he was forced back by the attacks. This made him more excited as he fought. Qianli didn't give up and tried again. If he kept fighting, the 6 squads he sent out would be able to cut off his escape route. Then they would be able to surround him. Brothers, beat him up. Beat him up. Black Index Finger shouted. Those who didn't know what was going on might think that it was a fierce battle. But in fact, it was just a bunch of people pressing down on one person at the bottom of the hill, not daring to let him get any closer. We can start charging now. Unchung Mutsu observed the situation calmly, and suddenly said. He saw the 6 squads that cut off Qianli's escape route. They actually completed the detour. Unchung Mutsu didn't expect Black Index Finger to use such a simple tactic against Qianli. Was he too confident? Archers, attack harder. Pay attention to the rhythm. Don't stop. Black Index Finger's legs stopped shaking, but his breathing was getting heavier and heavier. It was so heavy that many people around him looked at him. It was just a command, but he was working so hard. What a talent. Black Index Finger was really nervous now. At such a critical moment, if the archer's continuous attack was not enough, and Gu Fei had the time to use the teleportation scroll, all their efforts would be in vain. Fortunately, everyone was mentally prepared for this situation. The archers had also studied and coordinated very carefully. At this time, they all worked hard. No one made mistakes because of nervousness. They fought steadily and surely. Under their continuous attacks, Gu Fei really didn't have the time to even chant, let alone use the teleportation scroll. Being chased by the arrows of the archers, Gu Fei suddenly began to retreat. He came from the left side, and now he returned to the same path. After a few steps, he had already hidden behind the hill. Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger shouted to attract people to chase after him. A bunch of people saw that Qianli was helplessly chased away by them. They all became spirited and prepared to rush down the hill amidst the battle cries. The one who was walking at the outermost glanced out of the corner of his eyes. He vaguely saw the drunk figure of Qianli. The direction of the figure's movement startled him, and he said in surprise, "He seems to have turned in." Turned in? Fuck. Unchung Mutsu was startled when he heard that. Then he was immediately shocked. The others also realized what was going on, and quickly began to move horizontally. At this time, he actually rushed into the ambush that we had originally planned. But our ambush has already been broken. This guy. Unchung Mutsu pulled a handful of his hair. He realized that they had obviously been fooled again. Drunk Qianli had performed a diversion. His target was still the players with PK points. Obviously, he also knew that these players were bait and poison. Even so, he still didn't give up. He first went to mess up the fishing net and hook, and then he greedily rushed towards the bait again. Are those guys still there? The battle had been going on for a while. The players who were used as bait had been forgotten by Unchung Mutsu. He quickly went to receive the message. The message could not be received. A cold system prompt appeared. Unchung Mutsu's hair was pulled out again. These idiots, were they going to wait there all along? The bait did not want to wait in the same place, but when Qianli turned around before getting drunk, they immediately lost their value and were immediately forgotten. Even the original spies had returned to their respective teams to participate in the battle, but none of them called out to them. Their opponent was Qianli, and every team was going for 100 players. They were the bait, but there were only about 10 of them. They definitely did not have any clerics. Were they supposed to send themselves to Qianli to complete the mission? The bait were the same as everyone else. They did not expect that Qianli, when drunk, was tearing down their nets, and that he still wanted to come back to eat. They thought that staying in the same place was the safest. They did not expect that Qianli, when drunk, would turn around and block them. Gu Fei was also quite surprised that these guys were so obedient and still stayed in the same place to wait for him. He expected that these guys might run out, and then he would run around to kill them. But now they lined up neatly in front of him. How could Gu Fei be polite? He went up and slashed 3 of them with one slash. The faster archers on the hillside had also caught up. They looked down from above and shot wildly at Gu Fei. Gu Fei immediately began to change his footwork. The archers could see that Gu Fei was right under their eyelids, but they could not aim at him. Those who had their eyes on this position released their bowstrings, and they were already in another position. Unchung Mutsu, who had short legs, arrived a step later. When he saw this scene, he immediately knew that the archers had been suppressing him previously. This guy's footwork was too flashy, and flashy footwork was the nemesis of archers. It was much harder to predict and shoot than to shoot from a fixed position. Block it, block the entrance, don't let him run out. The place that Unchung Mutsu and the others carefully chose was a natural pocket formation on the hillside. There was a small leveling area in the hole, and it was a popular place for players to level up. There were many such places in this mountainous area. Once a team occupied it, there would basically be no disturbance from outsiders. The monster's spawning speed was also just right. It was the most popular leveling area in Cloud City, and it was extremely popular and highly sought after. There were people occupying it 24/7. However, this terrain was too conspicuous. If Qianli was drunk and walked in front of it, there was a high chance that he would be immediately suspicious. To deal with this kind of situation, Unchung Mutsu and the others had a way to deal with it. It was just that before they could use it, Gu Fei took a detour to find them first, and all their arrangements were beautifully ruined. At this time, Gu Fei was still in the pocket, but Unchung Mutsu did not feel optimistic at all. The people who were originally arranged to block the entrance had now run elsewhere. Due to the readjustment of the battle strategy, there was not enough people to block the entrance in a hurry. Unchung Mutsu shouted, but he did not move. Hence, his subordinates and some players from other guilds did not move in silence. Everyone could see that it was a problem to block the entrance with manpower. In the face of Qianli's drunkenness, wasn't it a free gift? Their guild leader only knew how to shout, but he did not take the lead himself. Wasn't it because he wanted the others to be cannon fodder to buy time? At this crucial moment, the command was not effective. Unchung Mutsu was secretly angry that the others did not have the spirit to sacrifice themselves. However, it was not good to say this, so Unchung Mutsu could only brace himself and set an example. Although his warrior's legs were short, there was a slight acceleration when he slid down the hillside, so he was still agile. As he slid down, he shouted, "Everyone come down and block the entrance." When Unchung Mutsu's subordinates saw that their guild leader had already taken the lead, it was not good for them to continue playing dumb. They also braced themselves and started to slide down. The archers were happy. They could continue to shoot arrows from high up. It did not matter if they hit the target or not, they did not need to run down anyway. Meanwhile, the players from other guilds looked at each other. Should they listen to Unchung Mutsu's orders and be cannon fodder? This was a problem. Damn it. Come down quickly. Unchung Mutsu was the first to land. He looked up and saw that other than his brothers, the other guilds were hesitating and not taking action. Unchung Mutsu was furious. If they did not unite at this time, wouldn't they die? Looking back, he realized that the 6 outflanking squads could not be counted on anymore. The archers that were left beside the black index finger were all there, and the sorcerers were about to get into position. However, once the sorcerers were in position, their attacks would cover the entire area. By then, Qianli would definitely try to break through the encirclement. He seemed to be standing too far in front. Everything happened earlier than Unchung Mutsu had expected. After Gu Fei killed a few people while dodging the arrows, he began to retreat in advance. There were less than 100 people from Unchung Mutsu's side, and there were only 4 to 5 rows of people blocking the entrance. To prevent Qianli from teleporting through the human wall, they had to be separated into the inside and the outside. They had to be as weak as they could be. Looking at the way Qianli charged over, it was as if they did not exist at all. There's no way to run. Unchung Mutsu did not expect this to be the result of him leading the way. If he were to retreat now, he would really lose his face. He could only bite the bullet and hope that Qianli would not charge through him. Unchung Mutsu was praying when he felt like he had fallen into an ice cellar. This was because he heard Gu Fei greeting him. Greetings, Guild Leader Yunmu. So it's me? Unchung Mutsu knew that he would be Qianli's #1 target once he came down. He had really become a cannon fodder now. Dying in the line of duty, he hoped that he could earn some prestige in the guild. Unchung Mutsu was considered an expert, but he did not have much hope for his own survival. Although he knew that there were many priests behind him waiting to heal him. Could they keep up with Qianli's skills? He turned around, dual flame flash, thunder palm, lightning spell. A few instant cast spells were cast in one go. And they were so connected that the grandmasters of combat who were famous for their combos were so embarrassed that they wanted to crawl into a hole. Killing people in one shot is so fucking smooth. Unchung Mutsu said helplessly. Cannon fodder. Chapter 807. I won't kill you if you quit the guild. Gu Fei shouted. He stepped on a player and flipped over the human wall. His shout was so loud that all the players on the hill heard it. The players who weren't from Black Alliance and Muyun all looked at the players from these 2 guilds. As long as one was an opponent of these 2 guilds, they would shout, I won't kill you if you quit. If it wasn't, they wouldn't say such a thing. It looked like 1,000 miles drunk was really going to shoot the bird that poked its head out to the end. What about us? Are we going to continue fighting like this? Many of the players were distracted by these thoughts, and they lost their aim. Mages, archers, and the like chased after 1,000 miles drunk, and their attacks almost hit the players who were intercepting them. I won't kill you if you quit the guild. Faced with the obstruction of the second row, Gu Fei shouted out a battle cry, then used dual flame flash to open up a path, and ran away without looking back. The players who were instantly killed cried. He wouldn't kill them if he quit the guild, but he had to give them a chance to quit. He shouted as he killed them. Those who were killed became cannon fodder, and gave the chance to others. Qianli left drunk. Black index finger's face turned black as he glared at everyone present. If they had succeeded in dealing with Qianli, they wouldn't have hated the traitor so much. However, they failed again this time, and it was obvious that the information had been leaked. Black index finger really wanted to know who the traitor was and eat him alive. Who was the traitor? Actually, this plan of theirs was a traitor. Gu Fei had a huge list of wanted missions, and his coordinates would be refreshed every minute. When he picked a new target, he immediately realized that there were many similar or even identical targets. These people were together, there was no doubt about it. In this area, there were many people from the Black Alliance and Muyun. Were they gathering players with PK value to protect them? It didn't seem like it. They had a large number of people in the city's revival points and prisons. If they wanted to protect them, they could just throw these people into the crowd and protect them. However, at this moment, they were clearly gathered in an area outside the city. Their objective was simply too obvious. Gu Fei was fully aware that this was a trap, but the more it was a trap, the more he wanted to go. Killing in itself was not the goal. The goal was to instill fear in the other party and make them lose their confidence. What could be more devastating than stepping on an opponent's trap? So Gu Fei went, and his trip was very successful. The bait that the other party had prepared was all eaten by him. Before he left, he killed the other party's leader and easily left. This was what it was like to be bold and skillful. The president of the Unchung Mutsu, who had been killed as cannon fodder, sent a message after his death. When he learned that Qianli had left in a drunken stupor, he was naturally depressed and did not even have the mood to talk. He squatted in the warrior camp and sulked. The Unchung Mutsu had no idea how to continue the current situation. As a guild, they had already tried their best, but the situation was still the same. Perhaps they could only wait for the studio to make a breakthrough. They said that the teleportation scroll that was sold to Qianli had been tampered with. But when would it be effective? As one of the leaders of the guild's operation, Unchung Mutsu knew about the collusion between Ying Qi's studio and them. At this moment he immediately sent a message to Ying Qi's contact person, but he did not receive a reply after a long time. Unchung Mutsu suddenly had a bad premonition. Ying Qi's studio was indeed powerful. The new mode of the parallel world where all the players gathered in the same world gave them an unprecedented opportunity. In the past, when they were operating, they needed to be distributed to various servers. It was basically impossible for them to directly help each other. However, in the parallel world, the studio had truly become a whole. The working groups set up in each city carried out their work orderly under the unified command of the higher-ups. They coordinated and assisted each other, and the profits were many times greater than before. Ying Qi saw the glorious future of the studio in this brand new game, so they spared no effort in increasing their investment and actively expanded their business. Everything was going smoothly. Ying Qi's business grew bigger and bigger, and the profits were getting higher and higher. Wherever there was a way to make money, Ying Qi would be involved. Of course, there were some unsatisfactory parts in the process. However, the biggest failure occurred when they were striving for efficiency in leveling up. Qianli got drunk, rejected Ying Qi's request to cooperate, and even killed 5 knights who was in charge of the negotiation. Although there were some traps in the process, business negotiations had always been about deception and deception. 5 knights never thought that there was anything wrong with what he did. Unfortunately, Qianli got drunk and looked down on his methods, so he killed him. The higher-ups of the studio only cared about the results and not the process. They didn't get the big deal, but they still wanted him to bear the responsibility. 5 knights, who was in a bad situation, gritted his teeth when he saw Qianli get drunk. He already had the intention to take revenge. Later on, during the city war, Cloud City unexpectedly had an unimaginable ending. 5 Knights was keenly aware that this abnormal ending would lead to a monopoly of the city districts. As a businessman, he was the clearest about how wonderful a monopoly was. It was a pity that he had to face Thousand Miles drunk again. Negotiating with this person, whether it was confidence or patience, 5 Knights was gone. As a result, he secretly contacted the guilds of Cloud City, who were still dissatisfied after the war. As a result, he hit it off with a group of people. On the surface, it seemed like the guilds were the ones fighting and killing each other. However, in a period where the system was not active, the only way to form an alliance with so many guilds was through the ubiquitous studio. 5 Knights had already confirmed the game's setting from their studio's source in the game. If a guild with a city district disbanded, then the city district would not be taken back by the system. Instead, it would be auctioned off publicly, and only guilds could participate in the auction. Which guild could compete with a studio in an auction? 5 Knights was very confident. As long as they could cripple against overpowered and reborn Amethyst, Ying Qi would definitely be able to take all 6 districts for themselves. As for the guilds that cooperated with them, they would have to promise them some benefits. However, this was not the main point. From the planning to the implementation, everything went smoothly. Moreover, against overpowered and reborn Amethyst actually merged, which made things easier for them. Originally, they needed to exert their strength against 2 guilds, but now, the problem was solved in one go. Surrounded, then threatened to leave. The operation went smoothly. Against overpowered's will, the majority of the guild members left in fear. However, after that, Qianli got drunk again. Qianli got drunk again. That bastard actually jumped out and killed everyone in their guild. At first, no one understood. They thought that he would rather die in the hands of his own people than die in such a despicable trap. Reality proved that Qianli wasn't that bored. The people he killed were all sent to prison, and he himself teleported away. After running around with Qianli, no one thought much of it at first. But now no one would think that way anymore. The guilds in Cloud City were almost driven mad by Qianli's drunk. On the other hand, the studio had yet to experience the power of Qianli's drunk killer. However, they could already feel his connections and influence. Yingqi plotted in Cloud City, but in the end the first place to be retaliated was in Moonlit City. Yingqi's studio could be said to be in deep trouble in Moonlit City. 5 Nights was the manager of the 6 cities. Among the 6 cities under him, Moonlit City was the most developed. Because of the chaos in Moonlit City, there were many loopholes for their studio to exploit. In fact, Dust did not lack the support of Yingqi's studio. Otherwise, Silvermoon would not have had so much influence after picking up a piece of equipment when the boss was in trouble. They could rely on their strength to completely suppress the entire city when the other guilds were still developing. Thinking about this, 5 Nights got angry again. Because it was Qianli's drunk killer who destroyed Dust's guild. In fact, 5 Nights really liked the chaos in Moonlit City. It was always easy to earn money from war. It was the same even in the game. Fighting and killing every day, how much equipment would be dropped? If equipment was dropped, they would have to buy it again. If they bought it, it would be dropped again. Everyone would fight for it, and the studio would raise the prices. What a happy and harmonious scene. In the end, it was destroyed by Qianli's drunk killer. The guilds of the previous world disintegrated, and new guilds rose to power. Those people who seemed impulsive and often cursed at the slightest provocation were actually very careful in managing their guilds. They continued to grow, and even established the 10 Guilds Alliance. In the past, they used the previous world as a warning. Although they were arrogant, they also restrained themselves. Compared to the time when the previous world was dominant, Moonlit Night City was much more peaceful. 5 Nights missed the chaos. He wanted to support a new guild. Even the manager of the city, Yingqi, personally went into action. However, surpassing the 10 Guilds Alliance seemed more and more impossible. Bribing the core members of the other party, sowing discord, 5 Nights used all kinds of methods. But such a group of roguelike people, their cohesiveness was extremely shocking. 5 Nights finally understood. The 10 Guilds Alliance wasn't the 10 guilds, but the 11 guilds. There was another 11th guild, and they didn't need the system's settings to gather together. They were friends, brothers, and they were scattered across the 10 guilds. As long as these people didn't fall, the 10 Guilds Alliance would always be the 10 Guilds Alliance. 5 Nights also thought of using this group of people. In the end, the people he sent out were killed amidst the shouts of "Damn you!" 5 Nights was afraid. The 2 big guilds that he supported also carefully hid the background of their studio. The core members of the 10 Guilds Alliance led by Yun Zhongmu were a group of people who thought with knives, in 5 Nights' words. He needed to make other plans. The matter of Moonlit City was temporarily put aside. 5 Nights was doing his best to fight for Cloud City. If he could get this city, Cloud City would become the main city that he would focus on developing in the future. In the end, he met Qianli. In the end, Yun Zhongmu and the others who thought with knives also came. In the end, Moonlit City started a harvest operation against their Yingqi studio. 5 Nights had put in a lot of effort in the 10 Guilds Alliance. When hiring people, he deliberately gave priority to the people of the 10 Guilds Alliance. He wanted to get in touch with the 10 Guilds Alliance and continue to infiltrate their forces. One day, when the time was right, he could control or disintegrate the 10 Guilds Alliance without any bloodshed. This was 5 Nights' new idea to deal with the 10 Guilds Alliance. Obviously, it needed time, so he was still carefully operating. In the end, because of the matter of Cloud City, Moonlit City made a big storm against their studio. 5 Nights knew that he was still far from controlling the 10 Guilds Alliance. However, he thought that the seeds he sowed would have some effect. With so many people speaking up for the studio, would Yun Zhongmu still dare to insist on fighting against Yingqi studio? Yun Zhongmu dared. News came from those who were kicked out of the guild because of Ing Chi studio. In response to these different voices, Yin Zhongmu only said 2 words, scram. As expected of a creature that thinks with knives. 5 Knights said after hearing this. Moonlit City had already started to attack Ing Chi studio. He quickly ordered all the shops to be closed. However, soon after, the guild that he supported also suffered a crazy attack from the 10 Guilds Alliance. If you quit, you won't be killed. Moonlit City was filled with the same voice. As for whether this slogan was specially unified with Gu Fei, no one knew. Proud Emperor and Weeds. These 2 people's guilds were originally second only to the 10 Guilds Alliance in Moonlit City. 5 Knights also hid the background of their studio. For example, the previous poaching activities were carried out by these 2 guilds, pretending that it was a situation of a guild battle in the game. However, because of Qianli's drunkenness, these 2 guilds' background was exposed, and the 10 Guilds Alliance had a complete conflict with these 2 guilds. They killed people on sight. In reality, there weren't many members in these 2 guilds who were truly studios. These 2 guilds had always been at odds with the 10 Guilds Alliance, so the normal players of these 2 guilds didn't have a good impression of the 10 Guilds Alliance. Now that Yin Zhongmu walked the path of moderation, he didn't go crazy against such an opponent. This caused the players of these 2 guilds to think that the 10 Guilds Alliance was just SOSO. However, this time, Yin Zhongmu completely exploded. They brought out the ruthlessness that they had when they fought against the Dust Guild in the past. They searched all over the world for the players of these 2 guilds to kill. This massacre came too suddenly, and the players of these 2 guilds were extremely passive. Before they could understand what was going on, the revival point had already been completely occupied by the 10 Guilds Alliance. They shouted that they would quit and wouldn't be killed. It was obvious that they wanted to completely eradicate these 2 guilds. How many people do the 2 guilds have left? Yin Zhongmu was like a great general, as he led a group of people to inspect the revival point. He also contacted the informants he had planted in these 2 guilds to find out the current results of their pursuit. Proud Heaven still has 612 people. The informant of Proud Heaven who was hiding in Proud Emperor reported. Although he couldn't come into contact with the core members of the guild, he could do such a small thing as counting the number of people in a guild. Miscellaneous Bunch has 647 people. The informant of Miscellaneous Bunch who was hiding in the weeds reported. Too slow. Kill them even more fiercely. After Yin Zhongmu reported these 2 figures to the whole guild, he gave the order to hurry up. Proud Heaven and Miscellaneous Bunch were both rank 5 guilds with a maximum of 750 people. After suffering a thunderous attack from the 10 Guilds Alliance, and after seeing the determination of the 10 Guilds Alliance, over 100 of their members had already left their guilds. However, Yin Zhongmu wasn't satisfied with this efficiency. He really wanted to pile all the people from these 2 guilds onto Black Dragon Mountain Road, and then throw rocks down. It would be very satisfying to kill as many people as possible. What's the rush? We have to give them some time to hesitate. Han Family Young Master was with Yin Zhongmu at this moment. He looked down on Yin Zhongmu's impatient and ungentlemanly manner. Keep a close eye on all the shops. I want to see if he has the guts to ever open a shop. Yin Zhongmu continued to shout as if he didn't hear Han Family Young Master's words. Because he had to command 10 guilds at once, Yin Zhongmu didn't need to send messages. He brought 10 guild members with him to act as his messengers. Thus, unlike other guild leaders, Yin Zhongmu actually shouted using words. His shouts could be heard by everyone on the street. It was very imposing. The 10 messengers had been doing this for a long time. Sometimes when they chatted in the guild channel, there would be people asking, "Are these the words of the guild leader?" It was the 10 Guilds Alliance. Some of the players in the guild referred to Yin Zhongmu as the guild leader. TSK. Han Family Young Master shook his head. Yin Zhongmu's commands didn't conform to his aesthetics. It wasn't without reason that the 2 sides hated each other. Lonnie was even more annoyed than Han Family Young Master. He, Qianli, had come all the way here to help Qianli. But now, it seemed like he was listening to Yin Zhongmu's orders. How could he tolerate this? Yin Zhongmu obviously knew that if he went to command Lan Yi, he would definitely be ridiculed. He simply ignored Lan Yi and the others and commanded his own 10-guild alliance to fight. Lan Yi and the others had nothing to do. They were extremely lonely. You're randomly killing people. Is this considered attacking the workshop? Fuck. Does the workshop rely on the players' levels to survive? Besides, how many workshop members can there be in this guild? I think you're just taking this opportunity to eliminate the guild that's resisting you, right? Lan Yi had nothing to do, so he could only argue with Yin Zhongmu. Fuck off. Yin Zhongmu said. The 10 messengers sent a message. Fuck off. The 10 guild alliance players were all at a loss. What did this senseless fuck off mean? The messengers reacted instinctively. As soon as they heard Yin Zhongmu speak, they immediately sent the message. They were afraid that they would miss the opportunity. After sending the message, they realized that something was wrong. Amidst the discussion, they pretended to be silent and didn't explain. He's probably trying to chasing Qi out of Moonlit Night City? Someone really understood. You guys continue to curse. I'm going over there. Han family young master said this and walked away. Everyone looked over. The place he was talking about was a tavern. That Lan Yi is right. This kind of method is far from enough to attack the workshop. Han family young master seemed to be talking to himself. He pushed open the door of the tavern and walked in. After looking around, he saw a person walking over with a smile. If you want scrolls, you can just send a message. Why did you come personally? After the person welcomed Han family young master to his seat, he handed him a glass of wine and said politely, "Hee, it's not just scrolls this time." Han family young master laughed. The only thing that could truly destroy the workshop was the workshop. Han family young master thought in his heart. Chapter 808. Oh, then what can I do for you this time? The other party spoke in a methodical manner. As he returned to his seat and sat down, he sized up the person in front of him and thought about this person's information. Han family young master, this was this person's new ID in the parallel world. In the past, he was known as Drunkard in the online gaming world. He was a top expert and usually chose a support-type priest as his class. He was the famous golden partner of the online gaming's #1 expert, Smoke Addict, later known as Sword Demon. Whether it was in duo combat, commanding, or tactical thinking, the two of them had great chemistry. However, other than Sword Demon, this person's other friends all had the same evaluation of him. Annoying, extremely annoying, as if they wanted this person to die 180 times. This golden partner disappeared after the online game entered the era of the parallel world. Then they resurfaced in the guild and mercenary group war organized by the system. Along with them appeared the current parallel world. Qianli Drunk, who could be said to be the most ruthless and invincible assassin in the history of online gaming. Other than that, there was also the top expert of the sorcerer class, Yutian Shenming, who switched to the archer class, and Scathed in Battle, who was known as the #1 warrior, and Brother Yu, who wasn't that good at games but could flood the entire forum with comments. These ruthless characters actually formed a small mercenary group together. This was still a common topic in the game. Now the newly established guild in Cloud City was very overpowered. It was with this group of people as the core. Other than that, it was said that there were many hidden experts. Although the guild was small, it was famous in the parallel world. However, winning the city battle and monopolizing the rewards was the biggest news recently. Being in the limelight would always attract jealousy and hatred. As a matter of fact, it was very overpowered and very quickly, it was attacked by the guilds in Cloud City. It was said that the situation was very bad now. Frankly speaking, the studio liked to see players fighting each other. This was the best time to sell consumable items. Customers used a lot of items and consumed them quickly. What was even more amazing was that due to the urgency of the situation, there wouldn't be much discussion about the price. As a matter of fact, it was extremely heaven-defying. This person stepped forward to purchase a large number of teleportation scrolls. This transaction was truly satisfying. Right now, he could only hope that they could fight for a while longer, but it seemed like the chances were not high. Only a few people managed to escape. This information was very reliable. It was his colleague in Cloud City, Ling Gufeng, who saw it with his own eyes. It was said that he was also at the scene of the siege, and was almost mistakenly killed. This person thought a lot when he thought about it, because the person in front of him was a person with a lot of content. By this time, the Han family young master had already drunk half a cup of wine. He put the wine cup back on the table, and made a slight sound of knocking. He suddenly came to his senses and realized that he had lost his composure. He felt very embarrassed and apologized profusely. As he had been too distracted, he had forgotten to look at the person in front of him. Only now did he start to size him up again. People who had never seen the Han family young master before would have such a reaction when they first saw him. At the same time, this person also confirmed a rumor in his heart. It was said that this golden pair of online gaming had a stunning appearance but an extremely terrible personality. As for the other, he was an admirable person but had an appearance that people didn't dare to compliment. Now it seemed that at least a quarter of the rumor had been confirmed. However, he couldn't stay silent anymore. This person knew that he had to speak. Although he had already said what he wanted to say, the other party didn't say anything. He could only say it again. Who asked him to be in the service industry? What do you need this time? This person changed the way he said it. The meaning was exactly the same as before. Nitrite radical, right? That name is very scientific. The Han family young master called out this person's name. They had previously contacted each other, so at least he knew this person's name. It's just a random name. Nitrite radical smiled. Then do your friends have sulfuric acid radical or hydrochloric acid radical? Asked the Han family young master. Nitrite radical smiled dryly. When the Han family young master asked him out, he said very seriously that he had something to discuss with him. But now, the Han family young master was talking about something irrelevant, and didn't get to the point. Nitrite radical didn't know how to reply. Luckily, the Han family young master didn't keep teasing him. He finished the remaining half glass of wine in his glass, put down the glass and said, "Then I'll be straightforward." Go ahead. Nitrite radical stood up, and refilled the wine glass for the Han family young master as he said. How big is your Yunting studio now? Asked the Han family young master. What do you mean? Nitrite radical was stunned. He didn't understand the intention of the Han family young master's words. Now there's an opportunity for development in front of you, said the Han family young master. Oh. Nitrite radical was very calm. It was too childish to get excited when he heard of opportunities and benefits. From Ling Gufeng's introduction of you, your level seems to be higher than his, right? Said the Han family young master. He's in charge of specific matters. I'm in charge of more miscellaneous matters. Nitrite radical said. The Han family young master smiled. At that time, the Han family young master needed a large number of teleportation scrolls. Ling Gufeng was actually the person in charge. If the sales volume was small, he could casually call for them. If the sales volume was large, he would need to gather them from many branches in the main cities. This would require the presence of a supervisor. Therefore, Ling Gufeng recommended this nitrite radical to the Han family young master. He said that nitrite radical could tell him if he needed anything. Nitrite radical's status was obviously not low. At this time, his words were rather vague. He was in charge of more miscellaneous matters. It could be said that he was in charge of everything. Obviously, he was at the supervisor level. It was hard to tell if he was being humble, or he was being cautious about the topic of the Han family young master. I believe that Ling Gufeng has roughly told you about the ambush in Cloud City. However, there's a situation that I'm afraid Ling Gufeng didn't know, said the Han family young master. Oh. What is it? Nitrite radical asked. This ambush was instigated by a studio behind the scenes, said the Han family young master. Oh, is that so? Nitrite smiled without batting an eyelid. From his expression, it was impossible to tell whether he was interested in this matter or not. The one behind this is Ying Chi Studio, said the Han family young master. Currently the biggest studio in the industry. Nitrite radical still replied casually. Obviously, before the Han family young master revealed his intentions or plans, Nitrite radical didn't want to reveal his thoughts. How big is the gap between Yuntung and Ying Chi? Asked the Han family young master. Quite big. It was still a casual and general answer. Then have you seen the chaos in Moon Knight City with Ing Chi? I've heard of it. Isn't it good to take this opportunity to replace Ing Chi? Said the Han family young master. Nitrite looked at the young master of the Han family seriously for a while, and suddenly smiled. This sentence is a bit too much of a jump. If this is what you want to say when we meet, and it is deduced from the previous sentence based on causality, then it seems that there is no need for us to talk anymore. Oh, why? Said the Han family young master. Nitrite Radical was a bit hesitant. The person in front of him should be a smart and capable person, but if he was seriously thinking about this, then he was a bit of an idiot. But if he was faking it, then what was the point of faking it? Nitrite Radical couldn't figure it out, but in the end he still spoke. Even if the person in front of him was an idiot, he was at least a big customer and a rich man. There was a need to build a friendship with this kind of person. Maybe you don't know much about the studio's operations. There are 100 main cities in the game. For a studio like Ing Chi, each city has a certain amount of power. Let's not talk about the current chaos. Even if Ing Chi's power in Moon Knight City was completely destroyed, it would only disrupt 1% of their business. They could easily recover with a bit of effort. That's why I said, this isn't a good opportunity to replace Ing Chi. Nitrite Radical was a bit more polite. In fact, this wasn't even a good opportunity. It wasn't even an opportunity. Oh, so your brain is still working, said the Han family young master. What do you mean? Nitrite Radical was confused. I thought you were asleep when I saw you mumbling something that didn't make any sense to me. The young master of the Han family said. At $% and confirmed half of it. Nitrite Radical thought, this guy's personality is really bad. Annoying, very annoying. Since everyone understands, let's get to the point, said the Han family young master. You guys have a chance to be promoted. Oh, let's hear it. Although Nitrite Radical was fooled, at least he knew that the Han family young master wasn't an idiot, so his attitude was very sincere. Cooperate with us, said the Han family young master. Please elaborate, said the Nitrite Radical. As a relatively new studio, although your Yintung has a good reputation, you guys are more worried about your lack of popularity, right? Said the Han family young master. Nitrite Radical nodded. That's inevitable, we've already expected it. Cooperating with us will help you raise your popularity, said the Han family young master. Nitrite Radical was silent. This was the truth. All of them were famous experts. If they could use their names, it would indeed help raise their popularity. However, raising their popularity would at most make Yintung's living conditions better, and their development smoother. It was still too early to say that they would replace Ing Chi. If he used this as a condition for Yintung to have a direct confrontation with Ing Chi, then Nitrite Radical would have to refuse even if he offended the rich man. This wasn't a fair price. It was just an image endorsement. It was a bit ridiculous to ask their small studio to wrestle with the industry's biggest Ing Chi. The Han family young master didn't say anything, waiting for Nitrite Radical to speak. Nitrite Radical thought for a moment, then said, I've admired your reputation in the gaming circle for a long time. If we can cooperate with you guys, it would be an honor for our studio. But even if it's like this, it's still far from replacing Ing Chi. We're not just famous, Han family young master said. I know that you guys are all top experts and have a lot of fighting strength. But forgive me for saying this, fighting strength isn't something that our studio needs. If an expert kills monsters for items, even if he kills them quickly, it wouldn't be faster than 100 noobs killing 100 monsters, right? Even if. That's not what I'm talking about. Han family young master interrupted Nitrite Radical. Then what is it? We have something else that you can't remember. Han family young master smiled. Something else? Nitrite Radical started to think. The thing that Han family young master was talking about would be a huge help to the studio's business. What could it be? Not long after, Nitrite Radical understood. He, who had always been calm, couldn't help but feel a bit excited. You're talking about the efficiency leveling method? That's right. Han family young master nodded. Nitrite Radical's brain started to work. The efficiency leveling method was different from the fame of an expert. It was a commodity that could be exchanged for profits in the market. More importantly, this was a product that was monopolized by the fist. Which studio wouldn't be jealous of Qianli's drunken team's efficiency leveling method? However, they couldn't find anyone who could come up with such a thing after interviewing all the experts in the game. Clothes, decorations, shipbuilding, food. These things could be done by hiring professionals from the real world. They could only do it in the game. But the efficiency leveling method, what kind of talent did they need? There were rumors that Qianli's drunken team was a professional fighting master. But what kind of profession was that? There was such a job in the real world? It wasn't that no studio had hired people from the real world. They had visited some martial arts schools. Most of the masters they hired didn't have any experience in games. It took a lot of effort just to understand their ideas and then put them into production. If they couldn't do it, the new masters would be level 0. How could they defeat level 40 or even level 50 monsters? When they reached level 40, the result was still unknown. It was said that some studios were hiring masters to train. But with the difficulty of leveling in the parallel world, how high would the players be when they reach level 40? Would they still need the efficiency leveling method? And what about the attitude of the game company? In such a long-term process, would they ignore the efficiency leveling method, which could speed up the players' leveling and shorten the game's lifespan? All these problems showed that the efficiency leveling method was a gold mine. If they really wanted to dig it, they could only rely on Qianli's drunken team now. As a result, some studios took action. 5 Knights looked for Qianli's drunken team to cooperate, but he was cut. Everyone in the circle had heard about this. 5 Knights was very cunning. He knew that the cooperation could have been negotiated, but his calculations angered Qianli's drunken team, and he would have to bear a lot of responsibility. 5 Knights was afraid that other studios would cooperate with Qianli's drunken team and snatch away the sweetness. So he created rumors in the circle and described Qianli's drunken team as unreasonable. In short, whoever wanted to cooperate with them would be cut. The studios didn't even have time to think about it. The game currency was greatly adjusted, and the city wars and whatnot were all over the place. Putting aside the city wars, the currency adjustment had a huge impact on the studios. Almost all the studios suspended their business and waited for the unclear market situation to become clear. A huge business like the efficiency leveling method naturally had to be put aside for the time being. And now this person, who should be an important figure in the team, actually took the initiative to discuss the efficiency leveling method with him. It was impossible for Nitrite not to be excited. Although he was excited, this was a profitable business, but it didn't seem to have anything to do with replacing Ying Qi's studio. Nitrite was in a hurry, so he directly asked this question. The efficiency leveling method could let everyone earn a lot, but how would they replace Ying Qi's studio? Han family young master laughed. The efficiency leveling method, if it were to be popularized, it would become a necessity for players. Do you agree? I agree. Nitrite nodded. You have something that all players need and will use, and they will constantly receive updates from you. You will have the largest customer base in the game. At this time, what business can you not compete with Ying Qi's studio? Han family young master said. I know that. But it will take a long time, said the Nitrite radical. Han family young master looked at him in surprise. Do you want to destroy Ying Qi in one night? If that's the case, you can't come to me, you have to talk to the game company. At the mention of the game company, Nitrite's heart skipped a beat. The game company probably won't approve of the efficiency leveling method. I'm afraid I can't keep doing this. Like I said, this is a product that needs to be updated at any time. Han family young master said. What do you mean? Stupid. How can the game company stop the efficiency leveling method? This isn't a cheat program, it's a very healthy method that everyone likes to use. If he wants to stop it, does he have to ban the accounts of the players? If we do it all at once, millions of players will use it. Would he dare to ban it? He can't ban the accounts, he can't ban the program, he can only change his own program. At this time, we just have to follow the updates. Will this work? Nitrite Root, who was usually calm, was starting to feel guilty. This was going against the game company. No matter how powerful the studio was, could it be more powerful than this boss? He built the stage for you to earn money. Now that your studio is regulated, you have more concerns. Even if the game company pressured you, what can they do to you if you ignore it? This is a method that the players found out by themselves, without any outside help. He has no legal basis to punish you. Han family young master thought it through. Think about it. Han family young master grabbed a bottle of wine from the table and poured himself a drink, waiting for Nitrite's reply. This plan is long-term, but what about now? Don't you need us to help you deal with Ing Chi's studio? Nitrite asked. Chapter 809. Oh, what can you guys do now? I don't know much about the studio. Han family young master smiled. But this smile and this tone made it hard to believe that he really didn't know. Does this guy want me to take the initiative to show my sincerity? Nitrous Radical thought. The high-efficiency leveling method was a big cake that Mr. Han had given them. However, if they were to rely on this cake to rise to the top, then they would be able to compete with Ing Chi's studio in the future. For these people who were surrounded by tens of thousands of players right now, they obviously didn't want this kind of result that could only be seen in a few years. Right now, what could he do to help them? This was what the other party wanted in exchange for such a high profit. Nitrous Radical wanted to hear the other party's opinion, but Han family young master wanted him to take the initiative to make some suggestions. He was probably trying to see what kind of bargaining chip we were willing to pay. But in this situation, what could a small studio like ours do to help them? It wasn't that Nitrous Radical didn't want to say it, but he couldn't think of anything they could do. He could only say with a bitter face, "We don't know what we can do." Han family young master smiled. Actually, it's nothing. I just want to do some preparatory work for your upcoming development. What do you mean? Nitrous Radical didn't understand. There are hundreds of main cities in the game, and there are thousands of level 40 training areas. Don't you need a lot of manpower to fully promote this business? Can Yunting do that with its current scale? Han family young master said. No, but we don't have to rush. We can do it bit by bit. Nitrous Radical suddenly stopped. He had realized that this was what the other party wanted in exchange for the efficiency leveling method. They wanted to popularize it on a large scale, but what did this have to do with the current situation? Nitrous Radical repeatedly recalled what Han family young master had said, and finally found the key words. Preparatory work, a lot of manpower. The Han family young master seemed to have noticed the Nitrite Radicals. He seized the opportunity to say, I'm afraid it's not easy to find so many people who are familiar with the working procedures of the studio, right? You mean, you want us to poach people from Ing Chi's studio? Nitrite Radical suddenly felt a sense of helplessness. There was nothing more vicious than this move. Although Ing Chi, who was famous and had connections, wouldn't fall just like that, it would definitely be a huge blow to their foundation. The studio industry was not mature enough. The talent market would not provide you with professional studio talents. It was easy to recruit temporary workers from the large group of gamers, but it was not easy to find people who truly understood the business operation of the studio, human resources, and finance. It was an industry that was gradually maturing, so there was definitely a lack of talent. Although the Han family young master's move was ruthless, Nitrite didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was easy to poach people from the studio. This industry was still in the stage of making money, and the people who came to the studio were all after money. For the time being, no one would say that they were interested in this industry, and had the great dream of fighting for it for the rest of their lives. Therefore, as long as they offered better pay, most people would be happy to change jobs. Even if Yunting was much younger than Ing Chi. But the problem was that it was easy to make empty promises. But how was he going to fulfill them? Yunting's scale couldn't handle so many people from Ing Chi. By that time, he would have to pay a month's salary, and it would close down in a few months due to lack of funds. Wasn't this idea too naive? What do you think? The young master of the Han family was currently holding the wine bottle firmly in his hand, pouring himself a drink while talking to Nitrite. Nitrite's wine glass, on the other hand, had not been touched for a long time, and was busy working on his brain. Hearing Han Family Young Master's words, Nitrite smiled bitterly. I'm afraid we can't do this. I know we can rely on the promotion of the efficiency leveling method to absorb these people, but the risk is too great. The promotion and sales of the efficiency leveling method is still unknown. If we invest too much rashly, not only will the studio close down, but we might also be unable to fulfill so many labor contracts. We might even be sued. Oh, you can come to this conclusion? It seems that you're already the leader of Yunting Studio? Han Family Young Master suddenly said. Nitrite was stunned, but he didn't hide anything, and told him the situation of their studio. I'm not really the leader. Actually, this studio is a joint venture of me and 2 other friends. Everyone is in charge, so it's hard to say who is the boss. In this case, should we ask everyone to sit down and discuss and listen to their opinions? The 3 of us usually take turns to enter the game, but they're not here now. But this is indeed a big deal. I'll go and contact them. Although Nitrite felt that Han Family Young Master's idea was a little naive, he didn't know why he was also tempted. The efficiency leveling method was like a huge business deal placed in front of him, and it would be a pity to give it up for no reason. Nitrite decided to discuss with his other 2 friends. It was too risky to poaching Qi's people, but there might be some other good ideas that could persuade Qi to cooperate with them. Okay, I'll wait for you. Han Family Young Master had time, so he nodded in response, and Nitrite rushed out of the tavern. Not long after, Han Family Young Master received a system notification that Nitrite had gone offline. Han Family Young Master had finished a bottle of wine, but Nitrite didn't touch the glass of wine that he had poured for him. Han Family Young Master ordered another bottle of wine, and drank it without any expression on his face. About 15 minutes later, the system notified Nitrite that he was online, and he immediately sent a message to Han Family Young Master, saying that he would be there soon. After waiting for a while, Nitrite arrived alone. Looking at the Han Family's Young Master's questioning gaze, he quickly explained, the 2 of them aren't in Moonlit Night City, but they're already flying over. They'll be here soon. Should we continue our discussion here, or should we move to a quieter place? Let's do it here. Han Family Young Master was too lazy to move. Why don't we sit over there? Nitrite pointed at an empty table in the corner. Han Family Young Master nodded, and moved over with a bottle of wine. Nitrite was observant, and he noticed that Han Family Young Master's bottle of wine was not the original one. Obviously, Han Family Young Master had asked for it after he left. Nitrite thought to himself that Han Family Young Master's ID was not randomly given, so he quickly asked for 2 more bottles. They moved to a corner, and after waiting for a while, the other 2 members of Yunting Studio arrived. They were a man and a woman, and they were as young as Nitrite. As for their professions, levels, and equipment, Han Family Young Master didn't bother to pay attention to them. He only listened to Nitrite's introduction. This is Yunting and this is Wu Yi. Han Family Young Master didn't move, and he nodded as a greeting. This Yunting Studio was named after his ID, so he was probably the one who invested the most among the 3, or the one who loved the studio the most. The 2 of them didn't pay much attention to the Han family's young master's impolite behavior. Nitrite Root had already reserved a seat for the 2 of them. Just as the 2 of them sat down, the Han family's young master said, "Is everything clear now?" The 3 nodded. Although they didn't say much on the phone, Nitrite's message was clear after they entered the game. The first to speak was the girl named Wu Yi. "I have a question I really want to ask. Why did you choose us to cooperate?" "You are the best choice," said Han Family Young Master. "Why?" "First of all, Yunting is a new studio, but it has developed very quickly and smoothly. Apart from your good management, I think you should have more funds," said Han Family Young Master. It's just us so," Nitrite said. Han Family Young Master smiled. "Secondly, the scale of your studio is just right. If it's too small, it won't be able to absorb Qi's manpower. If it's too big, for example, Sincerity, which is similar to Qi's, they won't even need to add manpower, and will be able to promote the efficiency leveling method to the entire game." Why do you have to promote the efficiency leveling method to the entire game? Even if we do it slowly, we can still do well. The girl called Wu Yi spoke again. Han family young master smiled. He didn't expect her to ask such a question. He didn't know if she was stupid, or if Nitrite didn't explain it clearly to them. Before Han family young master could speak, Nitrite explained to her. He doesn't want to promote the efficiency leveling method to the entire game, but he wants us to poaching cheese people. As for how the efficiency leveling method works, he doesn't care. The promotion is just an excuse for us to not poach people for nothing. Am I right? That's right. Han family young master smiled. That's the gist of it. The people recruited by Ying Qi will be enough to digest through the promotion of the efficiency leveling method. But after that, it will depend on your abilities as to how the rich people are going to be allocated. I think that's the most important thing to pay attention to. As for the efficiency leveling method, I really don't think there will be any risks in the process, unless what? The three of them were nervous. Unless the game company suddenly goes bankrupt, or the person who developed the efficiency leveling method dies, or something. Han family young master said. The three of them rolled their eyes. This kind of natural disaster was something that couldn't be avoided. Did it even need to be mentioned? That's all I want to say. It all depends on the three of you. But I hope it can be done quickly. If it doesn't work, I'll have to contact the next studio as soon as possible. There are quite a few studios like yours. Han family young master nodded and didn't say anything else. The three of them didn't avoid Han family young master. They just put their heads together and whispered something. Han family young master looked at the three of them. Yinting seemed to be more excited. It seemed like he was more interested in this idea. Nitrite's expression was fluctuating. It was obvious that he was still talking with Han family young master. Although he was tempted, he had many concerns and couldn't make up his mind. As for Wu Yi, she was the one who talked with Han family young master, but now she didn't say anything. She stared at Yuntung when Yuntung was talking. She stared at Nitrite when Nitrite was talking, and peeked at Han family young master from time to time. Han family young master didn't avoid them. He just drank his wine and waited patiently for their results. Of course, he wouldn't be too anxious. There were many studios like Yuntung. It was just that Yuntung had been in contact with them since Ling Gufeng, and he had witnessed the situation where Ying Qi was besieged, so it was easier for him to cooperate with them. If it were other guilds who didn't know the truth, they would have to spend a lot of effort to explain why they wanted to play tricks with Ying Qi. Han family young master also knew that this was a difficult thing to do. It was not a good way to take advantage of the other guilds. It was up to the three of them to decide. The discussion lasted for half an hour, during which people from the 10 Guilds Alliance even went into the tavern to search, and found 2 people who were said to be miscellaneous people, making the tavern a mess. However, the 3 of them were immersed in the intense discussion. They didn't notice this episode at all. Half an hour later, the 3 of them finally stopped their discussion. Yinting was still excited, Nitrite was still a little hesitant, and Wu Ye's eyes were focused on Yintung. As expected, the one who spoke was Yuntung. He nodded fiercely, then said 2 words with a determined tone. Let's do it. Han family young master smiled, nodded, and raised his glass. To our cooperation, cheers. Wait. Nitrite immediately said, this isn't a simple matter. We have to sign a contract. You have to guarantee that you will cooperate with us. Of course, but I'm not the one signing the contract. That guy is currently in Cloud City's prison. He can't get any information. You have to go there and find him. Han family young master said. Oh. Who is it? 100 Lives Classic. The guy who will provide you with the most efficient leveling method. Han family young master said. Not Qianli Drunk? The 3 were confused. I'm afraid that Qianli Drunk won't be interested in this matter. Han family young master said. Although 100 Lives Classic was also a famous person, he still couldn't compare to Qianli Drunk. Moreover, when it came to the most efficient leveling method, Qianli Drunk's name was also the one who appeared the most. Now that the topic suddenly changed to 100 Lives Classic, the 3 couldn't help but have a trace of doubt. You guys go to the prison over there, find him, and tell him about this matter. Han family young master said to himself. The 3's eyes widened. Could it be that he still doesn't know anything? Nonsense, he's in prison. How can I contact him? I can't go in. There are thousands of people guarding there. They're here to kill us. Han family young master said. You. So you're saying that the contract has nothing to do with you? Nitrite said. Of course, I won't develop any efficient leveling method. Han family young master said. Fuck, do you know how much money is involved in your contract? Even the person involved doesn't know, and you're contacting us? Han family young master nodded. You don't need to discuss the details of the contract with me. You guys can go directly to the prison to find him. Fuck. The three couldn't help but yell. Is there any way to do this? Han family young master spread his hands. The conditions are limited. If he can come out, of course he'll be sitting here talking to you guys. That's not the problem. The problem is, you didn't even ask for his opinion, and directly came to find us on his behalf? Nitrite had a face of disbelief. Han family young master was very impatient. Didn't I already say? I can't go to prison. How can I ask? Offline. Can't you contact him offline? I'm not familiar with him. How can I contact him? Han family young master said. Not familiar? The three coughed up blood again. Regarding the efficient leveling method, every studio had thought about it. Everyone knew how profitable it was. The contract with the partner, no matter if it was a profit sharing or a one-time buyout, the amount would at least be above 7 figures. The person in front of them didn't even know the person involved, and directly came over to discuss such a large contract. Was this person crazy? Don't waste time. Hurry up and go. Once the contract is signed, you guys can be at ease and start poaching people. Han family young master said. Okay, let's go now. The three stood up and prepared to head to Cloud City. Han family young master nodded. Good luck. The three of them nodded, but they set off with their hearts full of doubts. Han family young master's various actions had already surprised them, but now they were surprised. Since this person couldn't even contact the person involved, how could he guarantee that they would do as he wanted? As long as they got the contract, they could go back on their word about poaching people. Although the three didn't have this kind of thought, they felt that it was very strange that Han family young master didn't seem to be on guard against this. They didn't know that as soon as they left, Han family young master immediately left the tavern and ran to the revival point. After going offline, he went to contact Brother Yu, who was also offline. Brother Yu didn't have much PK points. In order to maintain the same time as Sword Demon, they didn't have much PK points, so they didn't have to waste time in jail. Offline became a very heaven-defying way of contacting them in and out of jail. After many details were told to Brother Yu was also very surprised. He didn't even ask by Shijing and just bought the deal for him. Han family young master was too bold, wasn't he? Shouldn't you contact me first and then contact the studio? Brother Yu said. It's to save time. Alright, hurry up and talk to Bai Shijing in the game. Is he online? Han family young master was so unfamiliar with Bai Shijing that he didn't even add him as a friend. Yes, his PK points aren't low either, Brother Yu said. With Bai Shijing's skills, how could his PK points be low? He had good luck and bad luck. The good was that his PK points were around 19, not 20, so he didn't drop a level in jail. As for the bad, he was killed by Gu Fei by mistake. He depth of water, and the others didn't have to go to jail at all. They weren't very heaven-defying people in the first place. Brother Yu ended the contact with Han family young master and re-entered the game. He and Bai Shijing happened to be in the same room, and their relationship was built on the efficient leveling method. It was a good topic to talk about. As soon as Brother Yu said this, Bai Shijing immediately became excited. That's great. This person. Brother Yu couldn't help but sigh. He had heard from Qianli that when he talked about this deal with Ying Qi, the person involved didn't say anything and was rejected by Qianli in a drunken rage. This time, the person involved didn't say anything and was settled by Han family young master. Was he a person or a commodity? Brother Yu couldn't help but think. Chapter 810. Nitrite, Yinteng, and Wu Yi went to the mailbox to get the teleport scroll, and arrived at Cloud City in the blink of an eye. They were the bosses of a gaming studio, and were on a business trip to discuss such a big deal. They wouldn't be stingy with a scroll. Ling Gufeng was the one who sent the coordinates to the three bosses. He was a little suspicious when he learned that the three bosses were coming to Cloud City personally. He wondered if it had anything to do with the introduction of the Han family young master. Ling Gufeng returned to the coordinates after sending the scroll, and waited for the three bosses. Soon the three arrived. Ling Gufeng asked for the purpose of their visit, and learned that they were going to the prison. He was stunned for a moment but didn't ask any questions and led the way. This was the first time these three people had come to Cloud City. Outside the dungeon of Cloud City, the players led by Black Index Finger and Unchung Mutsu were still guarding the place, but they all looked listless. There was no one among the tens of thousands of players who could still fight after being defeated by Qianli. Everyone was numbly executing the guild leader's arrangements, hoping that this matter would end soon. The dungeon wasn't a place where people didn't come. Using wanted missions to wash away PK points was a high-risk activity. Most players wouldn't choose that method. Those who were braver would do what they were supposed to do and wait for their PK points to disappear. Those who were less courageous would come to the dungeon and turn themselves in to get rid of their PK points. The players didn't know these four, and didn't bother to pay attention to them. They let them come and go. The four of them passed through the crowd, and arrived at the entrance of the dungeon. They paid the visitation fee and walked in. "Do you know 100 Lives Statesman?" Nitrite asked Ling Gufeng. "I should be able to recognize him." Ling Gufeng had seen 100 Lives Statesman when he attended a very overpowered campfire party. It was natural for him to take a few more glances at such a top character in the game. Ling Gufeng believed that he could still recognize him. The dungeon was bustling. In order to wash away his PK points, Gufei did piles of quests and the cells were packed one by one. The players in the prison were also numb. There was no need to understand the situation. Everyone here had been killed by Qianli when he was drunk. They were all wanted criminals. The more people there were, the livelier it would be. The players found their own entertainment. Some were chatting, some were playing cards, some were gambling, some were singing, and some were creating art. As the four of them walked down, they saw many players scribbling on the walls of the cells. They wrote slogans like, "Qianli will not die a natural death if he gets drunk." There were also some talented ones who drew mocking and sarcastic drawings. Ling Gufeng's scalp went numb. He didn't expect there to be so many people in the prison. It was a little difficult to recognize the unfamiliar Encyclopedia of Classics among so many people. The light in the prison was not very bright. Just as he was thinking of shouting at the top of his lungs, someone in the cell next to him suddenly shouted, "Gufeng, Gufeng!" Ling Gufeng quickly turned his head and saw Brother Yu standing in the cell, stretching out his arm and shouting at him. "Brother Yu!" Ling Gufeng quickly went up. But before he could say his purpose, Brother Yu already spoke. "Are you looking for Baisher? He's here." Encyclopedia of Classics had been waiting beside Brother Yu for a long time. When he saw them, he also came up to greet them. Ling Gufeng quickly called the three bosses over and introduced them. "This is Encyclopedia of Classics. It's an honor to meet you." The three bosses quickly greeted him. Although they were only separated by a fence, contact was forbidden in the dungeon, so there was no need to shake hands. Both sides sat on the ground outside of the cell, and were about to start negotiating. Brother Yu glanced back, and saw another person crawl over. Brother Yu introduced him to them, Shui Bian. "It's an honor to meet you." The three said the same thing again, but it was the truth. They were all famous people. Can I ask this efficient leveling method, just who mastered it?" Nitrite Radical asked. "Baisher, didn't the Han family young master tell you?" Brother Yu said. "Ah, then you are." The three were confused. They were looking for Baisher, but Encyclopedia of Classics was curled up and inconspicuous. Brother Yu and Shui Bian, on the other hand, casually sat in front of them. "I'm Baisher's manager," Brother Yu said. "I'm Baisher's assistant," Shui Bian said. The three looked at Encyclopedia of Classics in confusion, and Encyclopedia of Classics quickly said, "I'm Encyclopedia of Classics." Ahem. Brother Yu coughed. "Don't waste time, let's start now." Those who had dealt with Encyclopedia of Classics knew that he wasn't good at this, so Brother Yu, who was familiar with all kinds of tricks in the game, and Shui Bian, who was familiar with the studio, volunteered to help Encyclopedia of Classics with this matter. Encyclopedia of Classics was naturally happy. Just like that, the negotiation began in a strange atmosphere under the puzzled gazes of many people. Outside the Cloud City, Gu Fei persevered and completed many quests. He didn't care if the quest targets were people from Black Alliance or Sheep Cloud Guild, as long as they weren't too close to the city. In the process, Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger sent out teams to try and track Gu Fei, but Gu Fei didn't hold back. If he could kill, he would, and if he couldn't, he would run. The map was vast, and he even led people into the level 60 leveling area, killing half of them. Now, no matter what Black Index Finger and Unchung Mutsu said, the players weren't willing to chase after Gu Fei. They couldn't catch him if there were too many of them. And if there were too few of them, they would just be sending themselves to their deaths. Black Index Finger and Unchung Mutsu saw the situation, and simply ignored them. Qianli could do whatever he wanted when he was drunk. All the players with PK points returned to the city, and everyone took turns to guard the few areas in the city. The players who were training outside the city didn't wear their guild badges, so Qianli probably wouldn't recognize them if he was drunk. Gu Fei could tell from the coordinates on the mission list that the other party had set up. Some targets were moving towards the main city, but Gu Fei didn't care. He had completed a lot of quests, but he didn't hand them in, so his PK points were still accumulating. It was already at 468 points, which meant that another 100 players had died under Gu Fei's sword. As for how much PK points he had eliminated, Gu Fei kept adding and subtracting, but in the end, he was confused and just ignored it. Drifting, who had been sending names to Gu Fei, was already tired. He counted a few hundred PK points, and he sent a message to Gu Fei. "Boss, are you done? Your PK points are increasing and decreasing at the same time. When will this end? How many names have you sent me?" Gu Fei had an idea. Wasn't it easier to calculate here? Drifting's side was indeed convenient. He had the system's roster, and the number of people on each page was fixed. He could easily multiply it, and so he replied to Gu Fei, "More than 500. There are a lot of people with PK points in Cloud City." Gu Fei sighed. Things were really different now. From this, he could see that the number of players in the game was rapidly increasing. At the beginning of Cloud City, there weren't hundreds of people with PK points. "It's okay." Drifting was exhausted. "I think 500 is enough. I'll go turn in the quest and see," Gu Fei said. Although he had the function of the Windchaser emblem, who knew what Cloud City's wanted quest office looked like? Gu Fei didn't dare be careless. He didn't use the Windchaser emblem, but instead used a teleportation scroll and flew to Moonlit City's wanted quest office. Over at Moonlit City, Yin Zhongmu patted his chest and promised that he would ensure the safety of this place. If Gu Fei wanted to turn in the quest, he could come. Yin Zhongmu did what he said, and directly took over Moonlit City's wanted quest office. At this time, Gu Fei used the teleportation scroll, and arrived at the quest office in the blink of an eye. He skillfully turned in the quest, and the system notifications rang out one after another. The rewards for each quest flew by. But in this row of notifications that flew by, Gu Fei keenly caught a strange word, but it flashed too quickly, and he couldn't see it clearly. When all the notifications stopped flashing, Gu Fei saw that his PK points had finally been cleared. This efficiency made Gu Fei a bit speechless. Thinking back to when he was running around doing wanted quests, completing hundreds of them definitely wouldn't have been a matter of a few hours. But now it was just that fast. If this was the case, then in the future, his experience from doing wanted quests would be even faster than killing monsters. But killing monsters might be a bit slow. Gu Fei shook his head as he thought. He understood the PK points of players as killing monsters. Then Gu Fei began to search for the strange word he saw before in the hundreds of messages that flashed by. These words weren't just one line, and Gu Fei also knew what they were. This was a special reward. He had completed more than 500 wanted quests in one go. So many reward conditions must have been triggered. Gu Fei scrolled to the end of the message, and as expected, he quickly found the strange word. The first thing that appeared was, completed 400 wanted quests, Windchaser emblem's grade increased again. Gu Fei hurriedly flipped to the Wind Chaser emblem and was immediately overjoyed. Compared to the last time when it had been 100% appraised, the function this time was definitely 100 times more practical. Teleport. The new fourth function was still teleport, but it could teleport to a target. However, the system clearly stated that the teleport location was random, but it would at least be closer than the current location. In addition, each target could only be teleported once. That's awesome. Gu Fei punched the air. The Wind Chaser emblem was really a powerful weapon for wanted quests, but to be able to increase it to this level, the first 100 times, the second 200 times, and the third 400 times, it had already accumulated to 700 times. This was mostly due to Gu Fei's accumulation. Just today's quest alone had completed more than 500, and the first reward was the first to appear in the message. This meant that more of Gu Fei's achievements today could be converted into the next reward. Looking at the increasing number, the next reward might be 800 times. Now that he had the wanted license and the new target teleportation function, Gu Fei really wanted to immediately grind to 800 times to see what the next upgrade was. Suppressing his excitement, Gu Fei continued to flip to the next reward. Soon he saw it. Completed 200 wanted quests in a row, Wind Chaser boots grade increased. Would the shoes have a teleportation function? Gu Fei couldn't help but start fantasizing. He lifted his foot to take a look. The Wind Chaser boots grade had increased, but there wasn't an additional line of stats. Instead, the original stats had increased. The original plus 60 movement speed, which increased movement speed by 35%, had been updated to plus 80 movement speed, which increased movement speed by 40%. How much did it increase? Gu Fei was confused for a moment. He wasn't good at calculating, and compared to the Wind Chaser emblem, this reward didn't make Gu Fei too excited. This was where Gu Fei was different from other players. Any other person would definitely be more excited about this reward. The Wind Chaser emblem, other than for wanted quests, was at most an escape tool. There should be more. In Gu Fei's memory, there were more than these two lines. He continued to flip, and sure enough he flipped to wanted player count, 600. However, because Gu Fei's wanted license had increased by 2 grades due to the City War reward, this reward, which was supposed to be an upgrade, was changed to experience and money. In Gu Fei's memory, there were only these 3 lines of rewards, but after thinking about it, he felt that there should be one more. Wind Chaser's protection. This was also one of the rewards for wanted quests. The condition was to eliminate 400 PK points. This series of quests seemed to have doubled the conditions. The upgrade of Wind Chaser's protection was, of course, to eliminate 800 PK points. With his previous accumulation and today's craziness, Gu Fei felt that he should be able to reach 800 PK points. Just as he was feeling puzzled, he suddenly realized that Wind Chaser's protection didn't count in eliminating PK points. Although today's craziness was all about eliminating PK points, it didn't count there. It's not bad. Gu Fei was already very satisfied with the new function of the Wind Chaser emblem's upgrade. In addition, his PK points had all been eliminated, so he walked out of the wanted quest office with ease. Moonlit Night City was in chaos. The 10 Meetings Alliance attacked the 2 big guilds, and the 2 big guilds couldn't just sit there and not fight back. These 2 big guilds were the leaders of the resistance against the 10 Meetings Alliance in Moonlit Night City. At this time, when they raised their arms and called for help, many guilds followed. However, the 10 Meetings Alliance was still stronger. They weren't the guilds of the past. In Moonlit Night City, everyone wanted to beat them up. Cloud Twilight had also made many friendly guilds outside. At this time, one after another, they naturally stood on the side of the 10 Meetings Alliance. As soon as Gu Fei came out of the wanted quest office, there were 2 groups of people chasing and killing in front of him. When he looked again, there were battlefields everywhere in the city, and white light was everywhere. Gu Fei was excited. He quickly returned to the wanted quest office and checked the quests. It was great. There were many quests with PK points above 10. Gu Fei wanted to accept them, but he suddenly remembered that this wasn't the time to entertain himself. The group of people in Cloud City were still trapped in prison waiting for him to rescue them. Thinking about this, Gu Fei reluctantly left the wanted quest office and contacted the various parties in the prison. Finally done. At this time, Drifting saw Qianli, who had more than 400 PK points, disappear. He let out a long sigh of relief and laid on the ground with love left hand, handsome right hand. The players at the wanted quest office were also in an uproar when they saw the PK points rising. It was clearly rising and rising, so how did it suddenly disappear? What kind of method was this? Was there a bug? Players who didn't know about Gu Fei's reward would naturally have all kinds of speculations. Han family young master was still sitting in the tavern, waiting for news from Nitrite and the others. They didn't come, but Gu Fei's message came first and asked him what the situation was. Situation? The others are in prison and we're outside. What's the situation? What evil plan do you have next? Gu Fei asked. I'm waiting for Cloud City's negotiation. It's been 2 hours and there's still no results. Han family young master said. Negotiation? What negotiation? Gu Fei thought that the guilds were going to negotiate. Efficient leveling method. Find a cooperative studio and use it to teaching Qi a lesson. Han family young master said. Oh. What's going on? You'll know when the time comes. Han family young master was too lazy to say. What is Moonlit Night City doing? Gu Fei felt that there was a reason why Moonlit Night City was so busy killing. Sunset Cloud wants to fight with Ying Qi's people and mess with their guilds. Then the guilds in the city started fighting each other. There's no point. Han family young master said. What about reincarnated Amethyst? Yu Zai and the others? And Lan Yi and the others? Gu Fei asked. I don't know. Can't you just ask them? Han family young master was impatient. So Gu Fei asked the girls first. Many of the girls hadn't been to Moonlit Night City before. They originally wanted to walk around, but they didn't think that there would be smoke everywhere. It seemed like everyone was PK. So the girls continued their tour and headed towards the next city. Of course, they knew the situation Gu Fei and his group were in. But they knew that their existence was a weakness. It was better to stay as far away from them as possible. In the end, only Slender Waist Dance stayed behind, full of killing intent. Now she was slaughtering with Cloud Twilight. However, the people they killed were all people they didn't know, so it was quite boring. As soon as they received Gu Fei's message, they immediately became excited and wanted to go back to Cloud City with Gu Fei to kill. As for Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and Lan Yi's group, Sunset Cloud didn't seem to be lacking in manpower. They were all holed up in the tavern like Han family young master. Gu Fei didn't have Lan Yi as a friend, but as soon as he and Tsubasa Sakuratsuka sent a message, Lan Yi also received it. Fuck, what are you waiting for? Go back to Cloud City. Lan Yi yelled. Okay, I'll go back and take a look. You guys go on your way. Gu Fei said. Let's go together. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka said. I'll fly. Gu Fei said. Sakurazuka Tsukuzi cursed. He led a group of brothers and called Lan Yi over in a bad mood. They set off again towards Cloud Peak City. On the way, they bumped into Sunset Cloud. Although he hated Lan Yi and didn't have a good impression of the perverted men, he still asked where they were going. When he found out that they were going back to Cloud City, Sunset patted his chest. You guys go first. I'll go back and help Brother Qianli after I've cleaned up the mess here. Gu Fei had been floating in the wilderness for a long time. When he returned to Cloud City, he felt quite emotional. He wandered around the streets and wanted to find a respawn point to see how his opponents were doing. Suddenly he received a message. He opened it and saw that it was against the current. Hee, Brother Qianli can even clear his PK points so quickly. You're flattering me. Gu Fei immediately replied humbly. How's the situation? Do you need help? Against the current said. Gu Fei paused and told the Han family young master about the situation. Han family young master laughed coldly. The grass on the wall is finally starting to move. It looks like it's about time for us to counterattack. Oh. Against the current has already seen the situation. I think Sword Without Oath is about to do the same. Let them take the initiative to stick to us. That's what I'm waiting for. Do you really think you can kill them all by yourself? Han family young master said. That's hard to say. Gu Fei wasn't convinced. If you insist on killing them for a few days or weeks, then that's hard to say. But the guys in jail can't wait any longer. You've killed against the current in half a day, and these old foxes are standing on our side. You've already succeeded, Han family young master said. Then what do we do? Work with them? Let's hear their conditions first. Set up a place and I'll be back, Han family young master said. Chapter 8:11. The meeting place wasn't in Cloud City, but in an open area outside of Cloud City. This was Han family young master's intention. He understood the importance of going against the current, so he didn't dare let his guard down against the shrewd guy. Gu Fei, on the other hand, didn't care at all. Even if he directly invited them to the guild headquarters, so what? If the other party dared to have evil intentions, then they would be digging their own graves. Gu Fei had absolute confidence, patience, and willpower. Even if he was ambushed and killed like a doll when he had hundreds of PK points, he would still resolutely level back up to complete his goal. Not being able to completely kill the opponent in the game reduced the psychological burden on the other party. But who wasn't? Wasn't Gu Fei also unable to be completely eliminated by them? Moreover, Gu Fei was such a powerful opponent. Even if his level dropped, as long as he focused all of his attention on leveling, his leveling speed wouldn't be something any other player could compare to. From this point of view, they were both immortal, but in reality, the one under more pressure was Gu Fei's opponent. Outside of Cloud City, the two first met up and waited for going against the current to arrive. Gu Fei then asked about the studio. Just as Han family young master said that it was about time, Nitrite Radical sent a message. The content was to thank Han family young master for facilitating this deal. It's done, Han family young master said to Gu Fei. Oh, Gu Fei didn't know anything about this matter from start to finish. Those guys from the studio went to the prison to negotiate with eccentric strategist. There's water depth and brother you there, so there shouldn't be a big problem. When Han family young master said, there shouldn't be a big problem, he obviously meant that this time the studio was really sincere and didn't have any schemes like Five Nights. When Gu Fei heard that water depth, a guy who disliked the studio no matter what, was keeping an eye on them, and that they were still able to negotiate, the other party's attitude and sincerity seemed to be really amazing. Even water depth couldn't find fault with it. This is all we can do for the studio. Our main focus is on the guilds in the game, Han family young master said. Gu Fei nodded. He was indeed quite helpless against the studio. They were all businessmen, and they could not be deterred by force. At worst, they could just send people below level 10. No matter how strong Gu Fei was, what could he do? In fact, Ying Qi also wanted to do this in Moonlit Night City. However, when he heard that the 10 Societies Alliance was coming to cause trouble, he replaced them with characters below level 10 who were protected by the PK system. In the end, Yin Zhongmu was acting like a bandit. If he couldn't kill the boss, he would kill the client. Then he would throw trash into the shop and write graffiti on the walls. Ying Qi's people could do nothing but curse. In the end, they could only obediently suspend the shop. Right now, Wuxia is going offline to prepare some things regarding the contract. We also need to start organizing the manpower. Nitrite sent a message to Han family young master. He was quite a smart person, even though he couldn't figure out the relationship between these people. This Han family young master and eccentric strategist weren't close at all, but he helped facilitate such a big deal. However, he didn't hear that he could take a single cent from it. What he wanted was for Yun Tung to take this opportunity to attack Ying Qi. This request wasn't even convenient to include in the contract, but during the negotiation, eccentric strategist and the other two people attached great importance to this promise. After nearly 3 hours of negotiation, both sides were struggling with how to fulfill this problem. When the problem was finally solved, both sides heaved a sigh of relief. As for the negotiation of profit distribution, which was supposed to be the most important part of the contract, it went very smoothly. The 3 bosses of the studio were clear that poaching Ying Qi's people was the only bargaining chip they could provide in this deal. When they talked about the studio's development, potential, and future, they acted as if they didn't hear anything. Therefore, As soon as the deal was finalized, Nitrite hurriedly expressed his position to Han family young master. He really couldn't figure out who was the leader of this group of people, and he didn't know who he should express his goodwill to. The direct partner was eccentric strategist, but this guy seemed to have the least influence. During the negotiation, the guy named Shui Shen seemed to be very familiar with the operation of the studio, but after talking with him in detail, this guy wasn't even a heaven-defying person. As soon as the Han family young master was mentioned, he looked like he wanted to eat people up. The three bosses were really at a loss, extremely at a loss. Having been in the game business for so long, they had never seen a group of people with such strange and complicated relationships. As for Yunting Studio, they didn't care whether Ing Chi was Ing Chi or not. What they had to do was fulfill the conditions that they had discussed with the partner. The studio was a parasitic industry in the game. In the game, killing and robbing people were not against the law, and there were always despicable and dark means of competition. In comparison, it was a righteous thing to ask someone to jump ship with a tempting offer, although it was a little cruel to poach a lot of people in one go. How are you going to deal with the problem of personnel? Han family young master asked casually. Oh, what do you think? Nitrite seemed to be answering casually. In my opinion, first we have to be fast, and second, we have to be accurate. Fast is to avoid the counterattack, and accurate is to minimize the leakage of information. To achieve these 2 points, we have to prepare information. We need to poach the target's position in Ing Chi, treatment, personality, and interpersonal relationships. From the top to the bottom, the more important the person is, the more we have to poach, Han family young master replied. Nitrite took a deep breath and replied, Brother, are you interested in working in the studio? Han family young master smiled when he received the message. I don't think I'll work for someone else. Then I hope you'll never come again, said Nitrous Acid. I hope so. The young master of the Han family replied. At this time, he and Gu Fei had already seen the figure going against the current, so after greeting the Nitrite radical, they didn't say anything else. The two of you are really careful. It's so tiring to meet at such a far place. Against the current greeted Lu Zilong with a smile on his face. He was just spouting nonsense. He was tired in the game, but it was impossible for him to be tired after just a few steps. It was possible that he would be annoyed. The situation is pressing. Han family young master laughed. From the looks of it, the person who is being pressed is not here. Against the current also laughed. Gu Fei looked at the two of them and felt that it was really interesting. The young master of the Han family was familiar with going against the current, but if going against the current was as shrewd as he said, how could he not have a good understanding of the young master of the Han family? Of these two fellows, the young master of the Han family had been drinking and singing for so long, leaving at the crucial moment. Going against the current, he was now standing on top of the wall and observing for so long, only standing out when he saw that the direction of the wind was off. These things were quite awkward to mention, but the two of them acted as if they didn't know about it and didn't mention it at all. They chatted happily and amicably, and the two of them played the word hypocrisy to the extreme. The two of them were originally using each other, but they seemed to be righteous and courageous. During the conversation, Against the Current strongly criticized Shepherd Cloud Guild and Black Alliance for their despicable behavior of secretly attacking people, because they were greedy for the rewards. He also seemed to intentionally or unintentionally reveal some second-tier guilds behind the two guilds, and it was obvious that they were also involved in this ambush. In Against the Current's words, they were all shameless, had no character in the game, and should only be satisfied with having their accounts deleted. After that, Against the Current expressed that he couldn't stand the behavior of these people, and he had been actively organizing people for the past half a day, looking for the right opportunity. Now the wind was finally blowing in the wrong direction. Oh no, the time was finally here. Against the Current expressed that he was willing to uphold justice and completely eradicate these scumbags of Cloud City, even if it meant sacrificing the entire guild for this. As for Han family young master, he already knew that Against the Current had a righteous heart when they were drinking and singing. He had already predicted that when the wind was blowing in the wrong direction, oh no, when the time was right, against the current would definitely stand out at all costs, and lead the righteous 1050 people of his guild to set a moral example for the players of Cloud City. Of course, with Han family young master's style, there was definitely a tone of mockery between the lines. However, against the current acted as if he couldn't hear it. He expressed humility towards Han family young master's high praise, and repeatedly emphasized that his help this time was really for the word justice, and he definitely wouldn't covet any benefits. Hearing this, young Master Han said that although Renegade wasn't a despicable person who was greedy for benefits, his noble actions of raising the banner of justice was very heaven-defying, and they couldn't help but repay him. Against the current's expression was solemn, and he expressed that his righteous heart couldn't be measured by any benefits. At this time, many of the people who participated in this negotiation had already vomited. Gu Fei couldn't bear it anymore and finally opened his mouth. He criticized Han family young master, saying that he had insulted the great against the current, and that it was very immoral for him to attempt to corrupt the against the current with benefits. Han family young master listened very seriously, but before he could defend himself, against the current had already hurriedly explained on behalf of Han family young master. In the end, he talked about the huge pressure of being the against the current leader. Although he didn't want anything, he had to answer to the other 1049 people of the guild. For this, against the current was willing to sacrifice some of his personal image. So Han family young master's expression was solemn, as if moved by against the current's words. He told Gu Fei that since the against the current leader had completely abandoned his personal image for the guild, then they had to fulfill his wish. Gu Fei could only sigh, as if he was so moved by the spirit of going against the current that he could not speak. At this time, Han family young master and against the current discussed the problem of how to repay the against the current. Against the current swept away his previous noble attitude and put on the appearance of a merchant. He began to fight with the Han family young master for every inch of land. Every time he opened his mouth to ask for something, he would frown and say that it was for the sake of the 1049 people of the guild. The people that against the current brought with him had already hidden far away to kill monsters to kill time. They were afraid that if they continued to listen, they would have the urge to leave the guild. Gu Fei continued to listen on the side with his sword in hand. After half an hour, the two finally came to an end. Han family young master agreed to give against the current the premium VIP treatment in the city where the guild resided. Against the current finally accepted this condition with great difficulty. However, he was also worried that the against the current leader was still in jail and couldn't appear for the time being. In response, Han family young master only said indifferently, "The leader is Sword Demon." Against the current actually shut up just like that. It was really Sword Demon's character that was deeply rooted in people's hearts. As long as he really helped, how would Sword Demon be someone who would go back on his words? However, it was Han family young master, and not Sword Demon, who talked about a bunch of conditions with him. After a moment of silence, against the current finally said that Sword Demon was in jail, and that it was extremely necessary for him to go in and visit him. Gu Fei couldn't help but laugh at the side. Compared to Sword Demon, Han family young master's character was really terrible. After talking for a long time, he still didn't believe him. He would rather go to jail to see Sword Demon and nod his head. Han family young master didn't care about this. He smiled and said, "It's what I should do." Against the current hurriedly brought his people to visit the prison. Gu Fei still couldn't help but remind him, "There are a lot of people at the entrance of the dungeon. Will there be trouble? If they dare." Against the current was playing domineering again. After saying this sentence arrogantly, he left. Han family young master smiled and said to Gu Fei, "Those guys are already having a hard time dealing with you. If they still want to provoke against the current at this time, they must be crazy. If they are like you and expected that against the current is a fence-sitter, then they would have already fallen. Even if they didn't go crazy, they would still be crazy," Gu Fei said. Han family young master began to think again. Gu Fei seemed to have already felt that a despicable plan was brewing. At the entrance of the dungeon, against the current only brought a few people over. He was also a famous person in Cloud City and knew a lot of people. Normally, no one would care about people coming in and out of the dungeon. The news of Against the Current quickly spread to the ears of Black Index Finger and Unchung Matsu. The two really understood Against the Current's character. Once they heard that he had arrived, their eyes showed hatred and worry. The current situation was extremely unfavorable for them. As long as they used the tactic of delaying, they would definitely be the ones who would suffer a lot in the end. The people in the dungeon refused to go online no matter what. Assassins like Gu Fei were roaming outside. The group of players had to take turns to guard a few spots every day without stopping. The players who were training outside were also on tenterhooks. It had only been half a day, and they were already in such a state. If the people in the dungeon just took a break and slept at home for a week, wouldn't the tens of thousands of players collapse? This situation was clearly already happening. It wasn't like Unchung Matsu and the others couldn't enter the dungeon. They had already sent people in to take a look. There weren't many very overpowered people in the dungeon. Those who were also relaxed, playing cards and chatting. They didn't look like they were in a difficult situation at all. Unchung Matsu and Black Index Finger were about to go crazy, but if they didn't come out and go online, there was nothing they could do. Right now, the two of them even had the heart to die. Yet, the person who had gone against the current had come to bully them at this time. The two of them were unable to quell their anger. In their hearts, they thought that if they could not deal with 1,000 Miles Drunk, they would fight it out with this brat today. The two found the same thought in each other's eyes, so they came out from the crowd and welcomed Against the Current. So it's guild leader Against the Current. Why do you have the time to come here? Cloud Central's Moody had been on bad terms with Against the Current for a long time. He didn't have a good impression of Against the Current in the first place. Now that he knew that Against the Current was here to take advantage of the situation, he really wanted to go up and kill him. Hee, I came to the dungeon to see a friend. Against the Current said. Oh, who is it? Unchung Matsu asked. I don't think I need to tell anyone about this, do I? Against the Current said. But you have to tell them today. If you don't even think about entering. Unchung Matsu said. Against the Current was startled. Unchung Matsu's tough tone surprised him. He looked at the Black Index Finger next to him. It looked like it was going to pull out its sword at any moment. Against the Current realized that these people had been driven crazy by Qianli's drunkenness. At this time he thought that they didn't dare to offend him, but who knew that they had already given up. Qianli's drunkenness made them angry, and they needed to find a place to vent their anger. Against the Current, there were more than 1,000 people here. Going against the flow wasn't like killing 1,000 people. Gu Fei didn't dare to be arrogant, so he went with the flow and said, Is that so? Then I won't enter. I'm leaving. Fuck, you really know how to fucking retreat. Unchung Matsu was desperate to vent his anger, so his words weren't polite. How he wished that Against the Current could continue to be arrogant. That way, with a slash of his sword, a bunch of people would rush up and trample on him. How satisfying would that be? But now this guy actually gave in. Although he could still slash if he wanted, he couldn't vent his anger. Unchung Matsu and the others were desperate to find someone who could vent their anger. If this was any other day, Against the Current would definitely fight back if Unchung Matsu cursed him in front of them. But who asked him to be so shameless today? Running into a crowd of 1,000 people. Against the Current's rationality won over his hot-bloodedness. Although his face was ghastly pale, he still held it in. He didn't reply, and without turning his head he called out to his subordinates, Let's go. Seeing them turn and leave, the Black Index Finger said to Unchung Matsu, Let them go. Unchung Matsu was speechless. Since it's already like this, they'll definitely come looking for trouble. Just kill them. The Black Index Finger said. Unchung Matsu remained silent and waved his hand. A flying arrow pierced Against the Current's back. Against the Current was shocked. They turned around and found that 1,000 attacks were coming at them. Fuck, you really dared to attack us. Against the Current was depressed. But what could he do? Being trapped in this crowd of people, even Gu Fei didn't know if he could survive. Against the Current and the others were directly ambushed, and all of them died in an instant. Chapter 8:12. Unchung Matsu and Black Index Finger. had been fantasizing about how they would defend the Mage Academy after killing Qianli in a drunken stupor. The two of them wished they could set up an ambush with millions of soldiers. However, Gu Fei never had the chance to taste this feast, and Against the Current caught up. After reviving in the Mage Academy, Against the Current was seething with anger. He immediately called for people in the guild to take revenge, but just as he was about to step out of the Mage Academy, he suddenly froze. Unchung Mutsu and the others had too many people to set up an ambush in the market. Just as Against the Current reached the entrance, he saw a group of malicious players staring at him. Upstream was startled and hurriedly stopped in his tracks. He could imagine why there were so many people guarding here, but why did he have to catch up to them? Against the Current couldn't be sure if Unchung Mutsu and the others had really fallen out with him, or if it was just a moment of impulse. If they had really fallen out, they would definitely defend and not let him live. If it was just a moment of impulse, they should have calmed down by now, right? Even if he calmed down, Against the Current would definitely take revenge. But now would these people attack him? Against the Current couldn't ask, let alone try. Now that he was trapped here, he had nowhere to vent his frustrations. Against the Current hadn't even done anything, and he had already died a level. Was there any justice in this world? Against the Current wasn't in a hurry to call for reinforcements. Instead, he sent a message to Gu Fei and the others. Although it wasn't voluntary, he had already come this far. Let's just treat it as a ruse. Against the Current felt that if he died for this, he should at least make Qianli drunk or something. In the end, he received a reply from Qianli drunk. See, didn't I say there would be trouble? And you said you were fine. Be careful next time. After receiving this reply, Against the Current received a system notification saying, "Your heart is abnormal." He was almost forcefully disconnected from the game before he finally calmed down. Brother Qianli, I'm now trapped in the Mage Academy. Against the Current continued to try to gain sympathy. Don't you have a teleportation scroll? Gu Fei asked. No. Then you're finished. There must be a lot of people in the Mage Academy. They definitely won't be able to come out. Gu Fei said. After receiving this reply, Upstream could not help but feel agitated again. Due to the frequent occurrence of two heart abnormalities in such a short period of time, the system kicked him out of the game without hesitation. As a result, this forceful kick became the third heavy blow to Countercurrent. Countercurrent, who would have been fine after a short rest, had no choice but to swallow a few quick-acting heart reliever pills to endure. After resting for a few minutes, he went against the flow and re-entered the game. He tried his best to think of happier things, such as being forcefully disconnected from the game by the system. Fortunately, he was in the resurrection point, so he should not suffer any losses from forcefully disconnecting. Thinking of going against the flow, he went online and checked again. As expected, there were no losses. See, there's still hope in life. Countercurrent said to himself. The guild members were puzzled when their guild leader went offline after a few minutes. Wasn't he just telling everyone to gather and say that they were going to fight a tough battle? A bunch of people were confused when Countercurrent returned to the game. Everyone immediately came to ask him. How could Countercurrent say that he was so angry that he had a heart attack? He could only say that he was going to the toilet. In the end, the players in the guild hurriedly came to him with bad news. The players against Singing and Wine were ambushed in the leveling area. In the few minutes that Countercurrent had acted up, 37 people had already died. Among them, 2 teams of 21 people were directly wiped out. Countercurrent knew that Unchung Mutsu and the others had really fallen out with them. They might as well make the first move and take the initiative to attack the Singing and Wine players. As Countercurrent panicked, the system's alarm sounded again. Since he had just acted up, the system did not dare to be careless and directly kicked him. Countercurrent, who was disconnected from the game, wanted to cry but had no tears. He hurriedly re-entered the game, but as soon as he entered, he was warned by the system with big words. For your health, please adjust your state of mind and play moderately. Half of my heart attacks were caused by you guys. Countercurrent cursed in his heart, but he did not dare to be too agitated. Everyone in the guild was confused by the guild leader's actions. Countercurrent acted as if nothing had happened and calmly conducted his work. This also surprised everyone. Although the guild leader had always been very rational, being rational did not mean that he was not angry. Now that the guild was ambushed, how could he still be so calm? As expected of the guild leader, someone said. The more critical the situation, the calmer he is. Amidst the praises, Countercurrent quickly finished arranging the work. The first thing to do was to remove all the guild badges, so that the other side would not be able to confirm their identities. Next, they had to quickly gather and return to the city to save themselves at the Mage Academy. The gathering had already been done a long time ago. At this time, the people from Singing to Wine were heading towards the main city from all directions. Countercurrent had no other choice, so he solemnly expressed to Gu Fei and the others that he was going to start serving justice. Thank you. Gu Fei's indifferent tone almost caused Countercurrent to act up again. How he wished he could hear the other party's extremely moved voice, even if it was fake. Gu Fei and the Han family young master also walked towards the main city as if nothing had happened. On the way, they saw the people gathering to Singing to Wine. These two people were too familiar to Singing to Wine. They knew everyone, but neither side took the initiative to greet them. The people from Singing to Wine were obviously more anxious, and quickly left the two behind. Quite anxious? Han family young master said. Of course, Countercurrent is trapped in the Mage Academy. Gu Fei said. Unchung and the others will also take the initiative. There will be a fierce battle at the Mage Academy. They probably expect it too. Han family young master said. Which side will win? Gu Fei asked. Singing to Wine. Han family young master said without hesitation. You're that sure? Gu Fei said. The inside of the city is different from the outside. It's controlled by the terrain, so the advantage of numbers won't be easily displayed. Although there is an empty square outside of the revival point, it's perfect for Singing to Wine. If I was Unchung and the others, I wouldn't be defending there. I would first leave a few people to lure Singing to Wine's main force over. Then, I would form an outer circle and surround them from multiple streets, displaying the advantage of numbers. But even so, Singing to Wine would have no problem breaking out of the encirclement. There is a difference in the quality of the players. Han family young master said. Everything was as Han family young master expected. Outside of the Mage Academy, both sides mobilized their main forces to engage in a fierce battle. In the end, Singing to Wine had the upper hand. Their magic circle was quite powerful in this small street area. A row of spells blasted out, and within 30 meters of the street, not a single blade of grass could grow. Unchung and the others had no way to deal with this kind of offensive. After both sides dropped a few dozen levels, they tested the waters. Unchung and the others didn't risk their lives and chose to retreat. Right now there were many opinions in their alliance. Although they had the advantage in numbers, Unchung and Black Index Finger didn't dare to rely on numbers to fight with their lives on the line. Besides, Against the Current wasn't stupid enough to rely on the strength of his own guild. He had already started searching for allies, and the first one he found was Unsworn Sword. It wasn't hard to understand, because they were all competitors. Against the Current had to drag Unsworn Sword along. Otherwise, if they were to kill 1,000 enemies at the cost of 800 of their own, then wouldn't Against the Current be able to take advantage of them? Unsworn Sword had always considered themselves to be the biggest guild in Cloud City, but now that everyone knew that Unchung and the others in Cloud City were going against them, Against the Current was surprisingly calm. Unsworn Sword, who had always been regarded as a brainless guild, was even more composed than Against the Current. This caused the players outside to wonder if Unsworn Sword had forgotten something. Unsworn Sword wasn't as good as Against the Current when it came to judging the situation. Their main advisor, Years of Reflection, was a little tactful, but he often made a fool out of himself when it came to strategy. They were also watching from the sidelines as if they were going against the current. However, going against the current was a little faster than them. They had determined that 1,000 miles drunk and the others had the upper hand and rushed over to express their goodwill. When it came to matters like this, it was easier for those who were in the lead to reap the benefits. By the time all the players in Cloud City stood on Qianli's side, Against the Current would no longer be able to obtain the promise of a VIP. Unsworn Sword's tempo was slower by half a beat, but he managed to see more of the situation. Going against the flow was a moment of foolishness. He didn't follow behind Thousand Miles Drunk to help him and accidentally pushed himself to the front. Unsworn Sword, who was about to look for Gu Fei, hesitated when he saw Jiodonga and Moody Cloudmitz fighting. This was especially true after Against the Current contacted him. Unsworn Sword didn't have much intelligence, but he wouldn't lose to anyone when it came to petty tricks. Moreover, he had been a guild leader for a long time, so he had a keen intuition. When Against the Current contacted him, he immediately realized that his reaction was slow this time. But he was late to another opportunity. All the big guilds in Cloud City were fighting each other, while they were completely preserving their strength. Unsworn Sword had dreamed of this kind of scene before, but he didn't think that such a day would actually come. At this time, he couldn't care less about asking for some benefits from Gu Fei's side. He could only play Tai Chi with Against the Current, such as how could he interfere with the feud between their guilds? When Against the Current saw that Unsworn Sword was trying to reap the benefits, he was extremely annoyed. If it wasn't for the fact that the system was focusing on him, he would have already started cursing and swearing. Against the Current definitely wouldn't agree to Against the Current, even if it meant perishing together. With this thought in mind, Against the Current decided to go all out and directly look for Unchung Mutsu's side to negotiate. Against the Current's meaning was very clear. Unsworn Sword wanted to take advantage of our fight, but this definitely wouldn't do. This despicable guy, even if he had to die first. Let's put this aside for now, and take this opportunity to kill Against the Current. Unchung Mutsu and the others had already realized that Against the Current's side wouldn't have a good ending. Moreover, after Qianli's drunkenness, their guild's vitality was greatly damaged. What was even more terrifying was that Qianli had already offended him. Who knew when this person would calm down? If he continued to kill Mu Yunxing and Black Alliance members, the two guilds would be disbanded sooner or later. Also, the group of tigers and wolves in the dungeon were probably also holding their breaths. Once they were all out, how many of them would be easy to deal with? With this thought in mind, Unchung Mutsu felt that their future was bleak. Against the Current actually asked him to help them destroy Against the Current. Unchung Mutsu really liked this suggestion. After all, they were already a group of people with no future. Before he died, it was not a bad idea to drag a few more people down with him, especially Unsworn Sword, who had long since disliked him. Both sides immediately came to a temporary truce and began to make arrangements. Poor Unsworn Sword was still in the dark. Reflection Years also thought that they had encountered a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but little did they know that their decision would put them under a dangerous wall, which was about to collapse in the blink of an eye. The first wave of ambushes was carried out very secretly. Just like the first wave of ambushes against Singing with Wine, there was no news of it at all. Obviously, the untrustworthy players did not participate in this operation at all. This time, there were even more players participating in the attack against the Current, and everyone was more patient. It did not matter if they were alone or in a party, killing mobs or doing quests. As long as they were from Against the Current, they could be targeted. The guild channel of Against the Current exploded in an instant. In the first wave of ambushes, 142 Against the Current were directly killed. This was a huge loss. The opponent's attack was obviously extremely crazy. Unsworn Sword, who had just received the news, was dumbfounded. He had wanted to watch the show from the sidelines, but who would have thought that he would suddenly become the #1 target? Picking up the badge, gathering people, and naturally, Against the Current operated in the same manner. Therefore, for a moment, the tradition of the big guilds in Cloud City wearing their badge with pride disappeared. Everyone kept their badge in the deepest part of their pockets, and if they saw a player without a badge on the street, they would be terrified. Once the other party's identity was confirmed, they only had 3 choices: run, kill, or be killed. Below the big guilds, there would always be many friends in the guild. A few of the big brains were looking for helpers, and in this aspect, Unsworn Sword had a slight advantage. Among the colorful clouds, he could fight for the position of the 5th largest guild in Cloud City. At a time like this, Gu Xiaoshang would not be so disloyal as to not help him. Gu Xiaoshang happily joined the battle. Cloud City's guilds weren't idle at all. Those who were familiar with the big guilds had already brought their people to stand with them. Those who were watching from the sidelines and didn't want to participate were being lobbied round after round. The relationship between the various guilds was complicated, and the guild leaders who were being lobbied were confused. Previously, they thought that Singing with Wine was fighting against Shepherd Cloud, but suddenly, they were fighting against the current. Then these two guilds should be together, right? But there were people from both guilds coming over to lobby them, which made it seem like they were not together. The small and medium-sized guilds were confused, very confused. They wanted to wait and see, but this would lead them to the same tragic path that Unsworn Sword had taken before. Waiting and seeing, they would be shot. Although large guilds like Against the Current wouldn't be wary of these small guilds watching from the sidelines. These small and medium-sized guilds also had small and medium-sized guilds. They didn't compete with rank 6 guilds, but they had competitors from rank 4 and rank 3 guilds of the same level. Some of the guilds that had already participated in the war discovered that their enemies were actually watching from the sidelines. How could they allow this to happen? Thus, they learned from Against the Current spirit, and directly dragged their enemies into this chaotic war between guilds that no one knew the reason for. The battle escalated rapidly, and it was even more chaotic than the moonlit night city. Inside and outside of the city, every inch of land had become a battlefield. Other than players who were protected by the PvP system and below, almost everyone was thrown into the battlefield. Although a large number of people didn't belong to any guilds, in this chaotic battle, because the guild emblem had become a symbol, everyone took it off. Therefore, those who didn't belong to any guilds without the emblem were often mistakenly killed. So at this time, someone suggested that it was not a good idea to mess around, and that everyone should wear their guild badge at the same time, so that they could kill clearly. In the end, there was really an idiot guild leader who thought that this was a brilliant idea, and led everyone to wear their guild badge. As a result, they became the most obvious target wherever they went, and were the first to be killed. Amidst the cursing, those who wore their guild badge all took off their guild badge. The person who suggested this became the public enemy, and everyone wanted to kill him. The entire Cloud City was filled with flames of war. Compared to Moonlit Night City, this had never happened in Cloud City before. All the resurrection points were filled with people, and all of them were revived. The area outside the resurrection point was also the main battlefield. Controlling the resurrection point was equivalent to controlling the opponent's combat power, and as a result, this position was taken by others, and it was a life-and-death battle. Chasing 1,000 miles drunk, dealing with overpowered, and so on. Moody and the others had long since forgotten about it. They only knew that they had no future, but now that all the players in the city were going to lose a lot of levels, they were very excited. They worked hard and charged towards destruction with the others. At this time, the wanted mission office was no longer an important place. At this time, who had the time to clean up the PvP system? So when Gu Fei and Han family young master strolled here, they saw that the previous tight security was no longer there. Gu Fei could not help but rush into the wanted mission office, and when he came out he said incoherently, "So many monsters." All the players with PvP value were treated as monsters by him. Han family young master was also shocked. The development of the situation was beyond his expectations. When Gu Fei mentioned that Uncheng Mutsu and the others were going crazy, Han family young master had a vague feeling that there might be a show to watch. In the end, when he went against the flow, Han family young master immediately told Gu Fei that a big show was about to start. But he did not expect that it would escalate to the level of a big show in such a short time. And the cause of all this trouble was very heaven-defying. At this time, they were all squatting in the dungeon, aloof from worldly affairs, and as safe as they could be. How many idiots would it take to escalate the situation to this level? Han family young master lamented. Chapter 8:13. Inside and outside Cloud City, there were battlefields everywhere. It was a mess. As the battle progressed, the main battlefield started to shift towards the center of the city. With the 7 main revival points as the center, It was divided into 7 large battlefields. The players didn't wear badges, didn't know each other, and couldn't tell friend from foe. The complexity of the battle couldn't be described with words. Apart from familiar faces, almost no one could be trusted. When the two sides met, they would report each other's guild. Some reported the truth, some reported lies. The truth was unpredictable. Many players didn't even know why they died. Gu Fei resisted the urge to accept a bunch of quests and go on a killing spree. After leaving the wanted quest office with the Han family young master, they headed towards the dungeon. At this time, whether it was the Shepherd Clouds Guild, the Black Alliance, or any of the smaller guilds, they all had opponents. They couldn't even take care of themselves. They really didn't have enough manpower to block the entrance of the dungeon. When Gu Fei and the Han family young master came over, they only saw a few sparse players. For Gu Fei, they couldn't be considered a combat force at all. The other side obviously had no intention of fighting with Gu Fei. As soon as they saw the black-clothed and purple-wielding Qianli drunk, they screamed and ran away. The purpose of their existence was to send a message when Qianli drunk appeared. Therefore, the two of them didn't encounter any obstacles. They easily paid the money and went in to visit the prison. The dungeon was still as lively as before. Due to the lack of communication with the outside world, no one had the time to run to the dungeon to send a message to these people who couldn't do anything. Therefore, these people didn't know that Cloud City was currently in the flames of war. When Gu Fei and the Han family young master came in, they were talking, singing, shouting, and playing with art. Everything was the same as before. The more Gu Fei walked, the darker his face became. The dungeon was dark. When Gu Fei came in, everyone glanced at him casually, but they couldn't quickly recognize that he was Qianli's drunk. Those fellows who used Qianli's drunk as an art were still entertained. Some used Qianli's drunkenness to make up crosstalk jokes, some filled in lyrics to ridicule him, and there were all kinds of insulting cartoons drawn on the wall, not to mention those who directly expressed their feelings in words. The Han family young master sighed in admiration all the way. Outside the dungeon, he listened to the story of 2 drunk Qianli eating shit in the mud pond. And inside the dungeon, he listened to the song of a drunk Qianli with a small penis. It was extremely joyful. However, the paintings on the wall were dark and blocked, so he couldn't fully appreciate them. This made the Han family young master feel a little regretful. Can you walk faster? Gu Fei was annoyed. Don't worry. Hey, look over here. This painting is not bad. The Han family young master called out. I'm not looking. Gu Fei's face darkened, and he ignored the Han family young master. He quickened his pace and looked for Sword Demon and the others. Finally, he saw Brother Yu and the others in a certain dungeon. When everyone saw Gu Fei coming over, they were surprised and had a strange expression. They had been in the dungeon for a long time, and they knew what the players around them did for entertainment. For Gu Fei to be able to endure it all the way, his mental strength was quite good. There's no time. I have to go offline or else I'll be kicked out. Of course, Brother Yu wasn't good at killing people, so he didn't have much PK points left. He had been in the dungeon for a while, and then he came to help Baisher Jingluan discuss the deal. After that, he discussed the deal with Baisher Jingluan and the others. Now that a lot of time had passed, he was about to be released from the dungeon, so he quickly prepared to go offline. No need. Everyone can go out when it's time. Gu Fei said. Oh. Everyone was startled. You killed them all? Brother Yu asked with a trembling voice. I didn't just kill them all. The Han family young master's voice floated over. Everyone in the city is about to die. Everyone stared at Gu Fei in horror, thinking to themselves, what did this guy do? Did he drop an atomic bomb on Cloud City? It's a mess outside. Our original opponents can't care about us anymore. Everyone can take this opportunity to come out. Gu Fei said truthfully. That's great. The players in the dungeon cheered. Although they didn't know the truth, Qianli drunk and the Han family young master were right in front of them. Could they be tricking them to go out and get killed? Everyone was excited when they found out they didn't have to waste any more time. What about the others? Gu Fei asked. The other side. Some of them are online and offline. Brother Yu said. Gu Fei looked back and saw that the dungeon was also very heaven-defying. Jian Nanyu and the others were in this cell. He hurriedly went over to tell them the news, and naturally, there was another round of cheers. Then he went to the other cell to find the sword demon. The sword demon was still meditating in the corner. Gu Fei called him a few times before he heard. He turned his head and saw it was Gu Fei and the Han family young master. He was startled. When Gu Fei stood in front of the dungeon, the other players in the dungeon recognized him. There was a moment of silence. These people had followed the Unchung Mutsu Black Index finger to attack. They knew that the outside of the dungeon was an extremely important defense circle. But now Qianli Drunk had actually entered the dungeon. Could it be that he had killed all the players outside? Everyone's faces were filled with fear. They looked at Gu Fei and the sword demon standing at the door and talking. Everyone subconsciously hid far away, as if Gu Fei could kill them here. It's okay. The sword demon was startled. He didn't doubt Gu Fei's ability, but using force like this would take many days to make the other party feel deeply pressured. It hadn't even been a day and the other party had already compromised. Wasn't his willpower a bit too weak? But after the Han family young master came over, he explained the current situation in a few words. The sword demon then understood. He didn't think that this matter would bring the whole city into a whirlpool. The sword demon was also filled with emotion. Although there are no obstacles to leaving the dungeon now, I suggest that everyone stay in the dungeon for a while. The Han family young master said. Yes, the dungeon is the safest now. If we leave the dungeon, our guild's identity will be more sensitive than anyone else. Once the players realize it, we will become the target of public criticism. The sword demon nodded. It's okay. Once we leave the dungeon, we can go to other main cities to play. Gu Fei said. That depends on the individual. In short, we should try not to appear in Cloud City. The sword demon said that this matter didn't affect him much. He was still far from leaving the dungeon. Even if he wanted to leave now, he couldn't. Then let's leave it at that for now. Gu Fei nodded. Then he and the Han family young master explained the sword demon's meaning to the others. Everyone felt that the sword demon's words were very reasonable. Then I'll go offline first. Brother Yu went offline in a panic. The countdown to his release had begun. He wasn't in a hurry to level up or anything. Cloud City was so lively now. He was more eager to go to the forum to see the gossip. Therefore, when the white light came, Brother Yu was the first to escape. The sword demon only pointed out the idea. Whether to hide in the dungeon or go to the outer city was everyone's choice. Therefore, there were sounds of discussion in the dungeon. Some wanted to go to the outer city temporarily, but most wanted to find a companion to avoid loneliness. How's your business discussion going? Gu Fei asked the 100 Generations Jingluan. Very smooth. The 100 Generations Jingluan rubbed his hands excitedly. We can start when we get out. We? Gu Fei was puzzled. Yes, me, Jiannanyu, and the others. We agreed to do this together a long time ago. Now that there's a studio to cooperate with us, we're so lucky. The 100 Generations Jingluan actually talked about this with Jiannanyu and the others at the campfire party. The people from Child Elite Group weren't too enthusiastic about the business of leveling efficiency. The ones who really wanted to make a fortune were the 100 Generations Jingluan and the 7 professional players. Of course, they hit it off. In fact, at that time, everyone just expressed their intentions. There was no agreement. However, the 100 Generations Jingluan was loyal. Although the studio actually needed a talent like him, he still brought Jiannanyu and the others along. The contract they signed was not in the name of the 100 Generations Jingluan, but in the name of the Qianli's Drunk Studio. It could be seen as a cooperation between the two studios. Oh, that's not bad. Gu Fei was gratified. During the campfire party, Jiannanyu and the 7 others had come to discuss the serious problem of the future with him. Now that they finally had a satisfactory solution, he was also quite happy. He went to the other side to comfort Jiannanyu and the others. As expected, they were all smiles and asked him to bring the good news to Dao Xiangmu and Lin Sunsen, who hadn't been sent to prison. All right, everyone continue to enjoy your time in prison. We'll be going first. After saying goodbye to everyone, Gu Fei left the dungeon with the Han family young master. Outside the dungeon, the two were greeted with the same frightened faces. Gu Fei didn't fight with them. He asked the Han family young master, "What else can we do next?" "Someone from the guild will do it for us. And the studio will also have a studio to work hard. I think we can just sit back and enjoy the fruits of their labor," said the Han family young master. "How can we do that?" Gu Fei said solemnly. "There are many missions in the wanted mission office. We can't waste them. I won't see you out." The Han family young master waved his hand at Gu Fei. Gu Fei left immediately. It could be said that he couldn't wait any longer. But as he flew away, the Han clan's young master noticed that those people who had expressions of fear on their faces had all turned to look at the Han clan's young master with malicious expressions. "I have to waste a scroll again." The Han family young master was quite helpless. Even a wise man would sometimes neglect some small problems in front of him. Those fellows had already surrounded him. Just as the young master of the Han family was about to open the scroll, he suddenly saw a black shadow sprinting back from the street. Along the way, the person flashed 6 meters forward, muttering, "I forgot," as he slashed with his sword. They turned around in shock and saw that Gu Fei had already killed them all. He waved his hand at the Han family young master and said, "Let's go." "This guy." The Han family young master put the scroll back into his pocket. In the information room of the town building in Cloud City, Drifting and Right Love Left Hand and Right Handsome Right Hand rested for a while. They didn't receive any news from Gu Fei and finally let out a sigh of relief. The three of them left the town building and walked out of the courtyard. They immediately saw a group of people chasing several players on the street in front of the gate. It was common for PK to be chased in the game. The three of them were used to it and didn't think too much about it. However, as they walked down the street, the frequency of PK incidents shocked the three of them. On a very remote street, there were 3 PK incidents at the same time. After the 3 PK incidents ended, the 3 groups of winning players started to look at each other. Not long after, the 3 groups of people started to fight again. During the battle, they would occasionally look at Drifting and the other 2 with a vigilant expression. What happened? Right Love Left Hand was surprised. "It must have something to do with that guy," Drifting said. "Ask him." Right Handsome Right Hand said. "I don't think we need to. Once we asked, he immediately remembered why he called us to go to that damn information room," Drifting said. Right Love Left Hand and Right Handsome Right Hand shivered and nodded. "Don't contact him. Block him." "I'll ask that Han family young master," Drifting said and went to contact the Han family young master. When Gu Fei arrived at the Wanted Quest office, he found that in just a short while, the Wanted Quest office wasn't as quiet as it used to be. Moreover, most of the people who came were mages. It was clear that in group battles, mages as the map's weapon had an innate advantage in terms of PK points. No matter what, normal players didn't dare to break through the limit of 30 points. So after mages passed 20 points, they had to bite the bullet and come here. In order to ensure the safety of their mages, the teams naturally sent teams to escort them. As a result, many teams coincidentally came to the Wanted Quest office. Once they saw each other, they immediately started fighting. The fighting didn't end. When Gu Fei arrived, these people were in the middle of a negotiation. What they meant was that no one should fight here. Everyone needed to clear their PK points, so they left a path of retreat. Everyone would take their own quests and then do them. The people who came here didn't have low PK points, so they shouldn't kill each other. Originally, everyone agreed with him, but it was this last sentence that immediately stirred up some people's thoughts. The people who came here didn't have low PK points. Killing them once was equivalent to killing them several times, so the Wanted Quest office was a good place to ambush. It was much safer than guarding the resurrection point. It wasn't just one guild that had this evil thought. However, with this thought, they were naturally worried about the safety of their mages. So they didn't immediately launch a sneak attack. They first agreed on the surface and endured this. Everyone quietly took their quests while secretly mobilizing people. They were already preparing to set up an ambush at the Wanted Quest office. A bunch of people were busy. After taking their quests and leaving, they didn't forget to be wary of each other. You go first, you go first, you go first. In the end, almost all of them went out one by one. In the end, as soon as they left, there was a whoosh. A mage was already flying in a white light. Everyone was shocked and started to accuse the other party of not keeping their word. However, just as they were about to start a fight, there was a whoosh. The mage who they were accusing also flew in a white light. This time, everyone saw clearly that the person who killed the person they were protecting was the #1 assassin of the parallel world, Qianli's drunk. Gu Fei didn't know what these players were thinking at this time. He just took the quest from top to bottom according to his PK points. He didn't even look at the coordinates when he saw a bunch of numbers in front of him. Many of the targets were actually at the wanted quest office. This Gu Fei wouldn't be polite. He went up and killed them. After killing one, the players realized that it was Qianli's drunk who was killing them. Wanted quest. If there's nothing else, go. Gu Fei shouted. Everyone wanted to cry. What time was this? Why did this guy have to come out and cause trouble? The players were very hesitant. They didn't know if they should go up and fight Gu Fei. Gu Fei gave a warning and rushed to the next target. Some players didn't have time to think and subconsciously went to protect him. In the end, they were killed by Gu Fei. Following them was the target. They couldn't protect him in time, and were turned to dust by Gu Fei's thunder palm. There was chaos outside the wanted quest office. At this time, there were many people inside who were hypocritically polite. In the end, another mage came out and Gu Fei killed him with his sword. In the chaos outside the wanted quest office, no one came up to attack Gu Fei. They were orderly in the chaos and retreated in all directions, keeping a distance from Gu Fei. Seeing that a mage who had just come out was killed, everyone felt a sense of satisfaction. They stood quietly and watched. The players who came out saw Gu Fei guarding with his sword. They didn't see their mage and didn't know what happened. They heard Gu Fei say, "Wanted quest. If it's fine, get out." The players who came out were in an uproar and hurriedly retreated inside. There were still people coming out. When the door opened, there were people coming in and out, squeezing together. Gu Fei stood on tiptoe and saw that there were still targets inside. He hurriedly maintained order. Don't push, don't push. Let those with PK value come out first. Everyone vomited blood. What was going on? Someone bravely came up to negotiate with Gu Fei. Brother Qianli, you. He couldn't say anything for a long time. Say what? Wanted quests were for people to do. It was reasonable for Gu Fei to do it. Usually one could only use overbearing threats to stop it, but now it was Qianli drunk. Who was threatening who? Gu Fei blocked the door and knocked on the door frame with the night streamer. What are you all doing here? Hurry up and do your own things. If there was too much pressure, there would eventually be resistance. Although Qianli drunk was terrifying, there were still people who overcame their fear. They shouted, "Fight!" and rushed forward. Gu Fei was very calm. He flipped back down the stone steps outside and saw several people rush in. The people watching outside also had an idea. With so many people, should they work together to attack Qianli drunk? These guys had only thought about it for a moment before they gave up on that idea. This was because Thousand Miles drunk took a few steps forward and returned to the stone steps. A circle of flames instantly killed all the hot-blooded men who had rushed out. The person they were protecting, the wanted mage, was still raising his staff and preparing to chant. At this time, he could only open his mouth, but he couldn't say anything. Wanted quest. Gu Fei shouted as he killed the person. He rushed in and killed anyone with a quest number. The players had lost their will to fight. They all ran out of the door. Gu Fei was calm. He looked at the targets one by one. In the middle, he turned in a quest and wiped out his PK value. Seeing that there were no targets around, he tapped the emblem and activated the new teleportation function. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.